There we go. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Edina City Council meeting. It is Tuesday, July 21st, 2026. There is no month that goes faster than July, is there? Past the 4th of July, it's unbelievable. We've got, as Director Benner said, a full agenda this evening, and we've been doing these meetings on a hybrid sort of basis during the pandemic and post-pandemic, so folks may be watching from home. They'll be able to call in and address the council on a couple of different matters. I don't know if we don't have any public hearings tonight, so if they have a concern they want to raise with the council with regard to a matter that's not on the agenda this evening or scheduled for a future public hearing, they can do that. And in the audience as well, if there's somebody here that has a concern that they want to address with the council that deals with a matter that's not on the agenda or scheduled for a future public hearing, we'd be glad to hear your concerns. And we'll have a few of our residents, I'm sure, that have concerns independent of what's on the agenda this evening. So there's the number that if you're watching, you can call in. And then we'll take people in the audience first with respect to the community comment portion of the agenda. And having provided that information, I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask our clerk Sharon Ellison to call the roll.
Councilmember Agnew.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
Councilmember Risser.
Here.
Mayor Hovland.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got a form of meeting agenda that's been published both to the general public and to the staff and council members. Is there anyone on the council or staff that wants to amend the agenda in any form or fashion? Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda as published?
So moved.
Member Jackson moves.
I second.
Member Agnew seconds. The adoption of the meeting agenda is published. Any further discussion on that issue? All those in favor of adopting the meeting agenda as published, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Reminder, Mr. Mayor, we are starting roll call.
Oh, even for that, we need to do the roll call.
All motions will be done by roll call
I
vote.
see that right here. So we've got a new process we have to employ based on state law, I guess.
And Americans
Federal
with
law.
Disability Act to comply.
All right, and so we'll go down the line. Councilmember Risser, how you vote on the adoption of the meeting agenda?
Aye.
Member Jackson?
Aye.
Member Pierce?
Aye.
Member Agnew?
Aye.
Mayor Zai. The meeting agenda is adopted. We've got something to work from. Now we are at community comment, and we're going to go to people in the audience first before we turn to the virtual world to see if we have people tuning in, and we'll have our residents come in that have a concern they want to address with the council.
Mayor, council members, my name is Ralph Zickert. On May 5th, Member Pierce in chambers characterized my recent community comments as throwing rocks. On June 23rd, Member Jackson, in a one-on-one conversation, expressed her concern that I needed to tone down my cynicism as she believed my comments portrayed a poor example to young people. So, to those impressionable young people who've been in the audience or have listened to any of the 30-plus times I've spoken before council, everyone gets to have an opinion. Educate yourself on the issues that are important to you. Strive to do the due diligence such that your opinion is supported by facts and one that will stand the test of impartial scrutiny. And understand the perseverance and courage it may take to stand by your opinion. For my part, I believe young people are mature enough to discern what they do or do not want to emulate as a role model. And if they've listened to understand, they've seen how easy it is for government to hide behind a lack of transparency, how easy it is for government to control the narrative, and how quickly government will shut down reasonable dissent. This month saw the passing of Doug Groh, a longtime columnist for the Star Tribune, and to quote one of his editors, he was never afraid to speak the truth to those who needed to hear it, end quote. Truth can be the kindest act of all for those who listen to understand, or it can be the sharpest cut of all for those who won't. In 3 years, not once has this council publicly or privately refuted the accuracy of what I've shared. As for Manager Neal, he too has been silent or on rare occasions belatedly confirmed what I've said. Most recently, Mr. Neal confirmed my statement that it was optics, not spending cuts, that were the major driver of the final 2026 general levy, an effort worthy of an F-. Therefore, with regards to the two previously mentioned council members and you, Mayor, each of whom have supported a culture of personal insults, if I were a cynic, I'd say things will never change. Yet as an optimist, I believe things can change as long as there are people who keep sharing the truth. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Jim Groves. Somebody asked for some assistance in locating a survey. And given all the issues I've had in the last 10 years in this area, what happened to our property, I said, sure, I'd be happy to assist you. And I went to the, website, find surveys and all that. And I went to the particular property in question, and there was no survey. The property in question is the Edina Country Club. Given where my office is located, and I basically stare over the country club and look at the back door that comes in off of Wilson Road, I see all this. There have been major remodelings. There have been hundreds of yards of trucks brought in, over almost 100 tandem loads of dirt when they redid this. Where's the survey? And so wondering about this, I decided to look, well, let's look at your own property. So I did, and I looked at our property, and I only found the survey from 1950. Well, there's a problem here. My wife and I went through this terrible battle with our neighbor. It cost us some money, and there is a court-ordered survey on that property, and the city has it because they had to sign off on it. And not only there's a court-ordered survey, it's a court-ordered survey with judicial landmarks on the three lots adjacent to each other, and it's a court-ordered, there's court-ordered covenants that go along with this. None of it is posted. And my question is why? This, if it's court-ordered, certainly it should be up there. And in terms of the country club, does it mean if there's no survey that the Edina Country Club got a pass on the survey requirements for a permit? Is that what that means? When will this be posted, and why hasn't it been posted? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Groves. We'll do some checking on that for you. Anyone else?
David Frankel. Last week I was over by Arden Park in the evening when a fairly sizable drone flew overhead. It was going from the east, or excuse me, going from the west to the east. The only thing I could think of, it was a police-related drone. One thing I'd like to remind the council and the law enforcement, FAA regulations apply to everybody who flies an aircraft in the U.S. airspace, including law enforcement, including emergencies. I have no idea whose drone it was, but it was also flying fairly close to clouds, and it was flying on a smoky day. Smoke can cause mechanical problems for anything, including small aircraft like a drone. There's a lot of issues with drones going on right now, and the city had what's called the Drone as a First Responder program. They ran some kind of pilot in May. The website said there'd be a follow-up to that press release in May, which to my knowledge there never has been. DFR programs work, but they're extremely expensive. And if you follow the news, you'll have seen the city of Minneapolis City Council just denied the Minneapolis Police Department the use of a free DFR pilot by one of the major DFR companies. It was mainly done because of the lack of public education. If this DFR program is to continue and someday in Edina, there needs to be more public outreach. There needs to be discussion about what drones can and can't do and the safety aspects they have and what privacy issues there are. There has to be more public meetings. When the Edina Police first started using drones, there was no public meeting as to what they were going to do with them. There needs to be public outreach when you use this kind of technology. It works, but it's not bulletproof. So I would emphasize, get education out there, have public meetings on any type of drone program. And again, the FAA says everybody has to follow regulations on the national airspace. National airspace is everything above the ground or a building. And Edina cannot say we do not allow drones in our airspace. The one thing the city can do is say you cannot launch a drone from Edina property, the city of Edina. It's the only thing you can do legally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frankel. Anyone else? Okay. Do we have anybody online? Okay. Our practice is that we take the public comment and then we respond to it if there were questions involved by the following Friday on the website, and then the city manager follows up if there were comments at the prior meeting with comments at the subsequent city council meeting, and I'll turn to city manager Scott Neal now to see if there were any responses he needed to make to the meeting that was held now, I guess, before the
June 16th.
June 20, the end of June.
Thank
Because
you,
we
Your
took
Honor.
that 4th of July week off.
There are two questions that we
Okay.
responded to previously online. I'll respond to them tonight, too. The first question is, why does the city plant maple trees? And our response is that the city prioritizes planting a diverse mix of climate-adapted tree species to improve biodiversity and strengthen the urban forest's resilience to pests, diseases, changes in environmental conditions, et cetera. Reducing the overall reliance on any single tree species, including maples, remains a long-term goal. Maple trees planted near Vernon Avenue and Highway 100 interchange project are a unique example of the city's commitment to sustainability. Rather than purchasing new trees, staff repurposed trees that had been originally been purchased as boxed trees for seasonal displays in the 50th and France district. The trees were wintered at the former Public Works site, just on the other side of 100, reused in the City Hall parking lot in 2025, and ultimately transplanted to their permanent location along West 50th Street. The creative approach allowed the city to extend the life of the trees while making efficient use of existing resources. The second question was around the use of Roundup in city parks. I have a hard time pronouncing the chemical in Roundup, so I'm just going to use the term Roundup. The city regularly evaluates its land management practices, but it does not currently have plans to ban Roundup style products in city parks. Roundup is used selectively as part of an integrated vegetation management program that also includes mowing, prescribed burns, hand removal of invasive plants. These methods work together to restore and maintain a native plant communities. When herbicides are used, applications are targeted and performed by certified, professionally trained contractors. City staff continue to monitor best practices and research related to vegetation management while balancing environmental stewardship, public safety, project costs, and the effectiveness of restoration efforts. And that's what we had.
All right, prompt any questions from council members? All right, very good. I was just thinking, it was seen we have an audience full of our fellow residents. Usually I would wait till the end of the meeting to do something like this, but in conjunction with the World Cup, probably about a month ago, the U.S. Conference of Mayors and FIFA got together and they offered any city 200 soccer balls free of charge. So here's an example of a deflated soccer ball that came in today, 200 of them. And so give some thought to how to use these. You know, I've got my ideas with the school district and the Edina Soccer Club and the Edina Give and Go and the Edina Ed Fund and on. But if you have some ideas, send them to me, please. And I'm telling you this now because after the wood deal matter's over, I'm sure you're all going to go home. You're not going to stick around to hear the mayor and the council members talk about what's going on in the world at the end of the meeting. So there it is. And it was pretty generous. When I saw 200 soccer balls, I ordered them right away, and here they came in. So, and it says football for schools, FIFA, on the side of it. So it's kind of exciting, and we'll get that done. So give it some thought. All right, we've got items on the consent agenda. I think that some of the council members want to remove from the consent agenda. Here's what I have on my list. Councilmember Risser, 6.1. Councilmember Agnew, 6.13. Councilmember Risser, 6.15. And Councilmember Pierce, 6.15. And then Councilmember Jackson, 6.16. Did I miss anything there?
Did you get me for?
I did, for
Okay,
6.15.
6.15. Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Okay. All right. With the exception of items 6.1, 6.13, 6.15, and 6.16, is there a motion to adopt the balance of the items in a single motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Councilmember Jackson moves. Councilmember Agnew seconds. Roll call. Any further discussion first? I'll say that. Okay. Member Risser.
Aye.
Member Jackson.
Aye.
Member Pierce.
Aye.
Member Agnew.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. Those items are adopted. They're on the consent agenda. Now we'll go back to the items that were removed from the consent agenda. Councilmember Risser, 6.1 is the minutes of the regular June 2nd meeting. I think there were some changes that you and Clerk Allison agreed on for the minutes.
Right, and I would just like to read these, and for all of you who are in the audience, this actually does pertain to what we're talking about later in terms of safety. And this is reference to an item that came up at this earlier meeting at June 2nd, but it was read as the council expressed concerns regarding the lack of alignment with section 24-130 of the city code about curb cuts on collector streets. And I requested it be changed to the council expressed concerns regarding the lack of alignment with section 24-130 of the city code about driveways intersecting arterial roads. Council noted code includes additional restrictions for lots in the R1 and R2 district. In these zones, no driveway shall intersect with a street designated as an arterial if the lot is a through lot. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody after this meeting if you have questions about that. It was a through lot, so there's a different access point that is not an arterial or a collector. It's Eden Prairie Road. So with that, I am very happy with this change.
All right, very good. Does anybody have any questions for Member Risser or the clerk? All right, Member Risser, would you move the amended minutes for the June 2nd regular city council meeting and then the work session minutes for June 16th, 2026?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we've got a second by Member Pierce on the amended minutes as Member Risser read them for June 2nd, 2026 regular meeting of the city council and the work session on June 16, 2026. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Councilmember Risser.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Councilmember Agnew.
Aye.
And Mayor, aye. Now, Clerk Allison, do you want to be doing this in the future instead of having me sit here and do this, or?
I certainly can.
Okay. It seems to me like that would be appropriate, then the mayor doesn't have to talk to himself. Okay. All right. Let's do that. All right, we're down to 6.13, which is a traffic safety report, and Councilmember Agnew wanted us to discuss that a little bit. And I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Agnew for her observations there.
Thank you. Yeah, the couple of parts that I wanted to dig into, I know we had a discussion previously about specifically the Pinewood, Sherwood with the clinic parking, and just wanted to get an update. It sounds like that's being asked for more study, but I'd love to understand where are we at on that today and what more do we still need to understand?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Something to keep in mind is procedurally these traffic safety reports are staggered because the committee meets 1 month and then the commission reviews it the next month and then the council reviews it. So this report is this is the May report. In the June report, the traffic safety committee reviewed it again and recommended to remove parking on the west side of Sherwood Road. That That report was reviewed by the Transportation Commission just last week, and so that will be coming to City Council in the first meeting in August.
Wonderful, thank you. So it sounds like we will be seeing it soon. We'll have some more closure on that particular topic, but just not tonight.
That's correct.
Wonderful, thank you. And then the next one that I wanted to ask about, because we'd received a couple of emails about it, and it was the Interlochen Boulevard, the corner to Park Terrace. I wasn't able to see that in the report, so I don't know if we reached out to that resident that we had reviewed it, or if I missed it in the report. But if you could provide an update on the recommendation that was provided for that specific request, that would be wonderful.
Of course, that item is in the June report, which is coming to council in August. So that was reviewed by the Transportation Commission last week. On that particular item, staff is recommending no action.
Okay. For that, can we also then just follow up with the resident? Because I think he was communicated that it would be discussed tonight at the city council meeting. So that would be
Yes,
wonderful.
we'll follow up with the resident on that.
Okay. Thank you for answering those questions. Having closed out on all of that, I move to approve the traffic safety report as of May 26, 2026.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Agnew. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Member Pierce. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Risser.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Councilmember Agnew.
Aye.
All right, the motion is approved. Thank you. And the traffic safety report of May 26, 2026 is adopted. Next item that was removed from the consent agenda is item 6.15. Member Risser and Member Pierce both asked for that to be removed, and that is dealing with a slight extension, proposed slight extension on the city manager's employment agreement. And I'll go to Member Risser first to
Thank you.
express her
And
concerns.
this is a basic, I was not on the committee that approved this, and which we can't all be part of everything because some matters are not open to the public, and we can't all be part of that. And I was not part of that group, so I really feel like I didn't have enough information to vote on this. Also, reading the item report for this, it concludes, for both clarity and transparency purposes, staff requests the council approve the proposed action to serve as the city's official written notice to extend the city manager's employment agreement to expire on his proposed retirement date of January 8th, 2027, as opposed to the very end of December 2026. And so I would ask for clarity on what the financial implications are in terms of extending Manager Neal's contract. I've heard from a lot of residents, and there's a lot of different opinions. And so if we could just get what exactly this means financially, that would be much appreciated.
Our Assistant City Manager Ari Lenz wants to address this issue, I believe.
Yeah, so I don't have the exact costs for the health insurance component, but for 1 week worth of pay, it's around $5,000, which is equivalent to 40 hours worth of pay for the city manager as he's an exempt employee.
And just to be crystal clear for people who are concerned, this is not triggering an entire year of healthcare coverage.
No.
Okay, it is 1 week of healthcare coverage.
Well, the health insurance, our actual city policy is that if an employee works even 1 hour worth of that month, that they receive it through the end of the month. So it would just be through January.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
Councilmember Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to remove that for a slightly different reason, but I think it actually might be tangential to Member Risser. We are in the midst of a hiring process to replace Manager Neal. And anytime you have the outgoing executive who is retiring in this case, and you have an incoming executive who you've not hired yet, it is just prudent to try to have some kind of overlap or transition between those two executives. And so kind of for that transition reason, I just think I thought it was really important for the community to hear that. We are thinking about that so that we aren't kind of left without an executive who has had a transition, who has now been somewhat onboarded and has gone through some of the onboarding. And so I definitely wanted to just make sure everybody was aware that we are doing that to ensure that we have a smooth transition. And you've got somebody who has served well in that role for 15 years. There's a lot that goes on with that. And so we definitely appreciate having that extra 1 week to make sure we've got a smooth transition.
Very good. Other comments? All right. So this takes us really about 8 days beyond the end of the year and 8 days beyond the normal sort of period of time in which we would have been extending the contract had he not decided to retire. Is that correct?
Right. And definitely with, I mean, the process is going well so far, but we have several interview cycles to go yet. And then once you've made that selection, you still have to have that conversation with the new candidate on the start date and all of that. And so it just gives us a little bit of breathing room, just a little bit.
All right. Yes, Member Risser, go ahead.
Apologies, I forgot another question. What is the implications in terms of compensation for vacation time for extending it for 1 week?
In terms of extending it for 1 week, the city manager would be able to get the same prorated amount that he gets for every hour that he typically gets, and so there would be no changes then to his current policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are some places where you go into a week and then you get your entire year.
Nope, we are not one of those places.
Okay, thank you. I think that needs to be clarified. Thank you.
Member Pierce, would you care to move the approval of the proposed extension of the city manager's current employment agreement, terms and conditions to expire on Friday, January 8th, 2027?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Member Jackson seconds. The motion is stated. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agnew,
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Mayor Hovland,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Risser.
Aye.
All right, motion's approved. The extension of the city manager's current employment agreement is approved. We will now extend that to Friday, January 8th, 2027. And thanks to Council Members Pierce and Jackson for kind of leading the effort, along with our staff, our Assistant City Manager, Ari Lenz, on the recruitment process. I think we could tell people we had, 60-some applicants originally starting, and got it down to 16, and now down to 6?
Yes.
Okay, so the rest of us will join in here soon and start the interview process. So, and some very good candidates. All right, the next item and the final item on the consent agenda that was pulled was the 6.16, which is a proposed resolution 2026-39, which appoints election judges for the August 11 primary and the November 3rd general elections. And Councilmember Jackson, I think, had some points she wanted to make with respect to those potential appointments of election judges. So, Councilmember Jackson, please.
Yes, thank you. So very briefly, free and fair elections are the foundation of our system of government. We can't do it without election judges. This is an outstanding panel of people who've stepped forward to make sure that we can run elections here in our city of Edina, along with our staff. And I just wanted to say a public thank you to all those people who stepped forward to be election judges. And with that, I will move section 6.16 of resolution number 2026-39, appointing election judges for the August 11th primary and November 3 general elections.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All right, Member Pierce seconds the motion as stated. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Hovland,
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce,
Aye.
Councilmember Agnew,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Risser.
Aye.
The resolution 2026-39 is adopted, and the election judges are appointed. And I think it's worthwhile with the audience full of our fellow residents that you talk a little bit about the process of election, how election judges are selected, how we try to make sure that we've got an equal number of people from both political parties, and
Sure.
And I think just a basic tutorial there would be good.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anyone is interested in becoming an election judge, we generally go through an application process. It's a pretty simple process to go through. Once we've gone through your application, we're looking for party balance. So there generally is the two major parties, the Republican and the Democratic Party. And the election judges are assigned to polling places based on party balance. There are some responsibilities in the polling place that requires two judges of differing parties to perform. For example, removing the ballots from the ballot counter. We need to have two different parties, two different judges of different parties doing that responsibility. In addition to work at the polling places on election day, I also need help here at City Hall for absentee voting. So if you're ever interested in helping out, those hours are generally 8 to 4:30, and I schedule that based on 2 shifts. So you would work a 8 a.m. to noon shift, and then a noon to 4:30 shift. So be sure and contact me if you are interested in helping out. I do have enough election judges for this election, but I could use some help at City Hall for absentee voting.
I didn't think it was going to be a recoupment speech, but that was okay. Yeah. We've got a lot of people in our community stepping up to be election judges, and it's nice that she's asked you to think about it as well. All right. We're going to move on now to the next portion of the agenda, which is the special recognitions and presentations. We've got a couple of presentations to make tonight, and I think you'll find them both interesting. The first one is what we call the PAX Fund, 2025 PAX Fund Summary Report. This is the funding source we use for building out non-motorized transportation systems in the city of Edina, sidewalk repair, things of that nature. So Andrew Scipione, our transportation planner, is here to make this report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Always a pleasure to be here tonight and talk about the great work that we've done with the Pedestrian and Cyclist Safety Fund. So as always, I'll give a brief overview of the PAX Fund for our audience, and then go into detail about the 2025 expenditures, the projects that we constructed last year, and then give a preview of projects that are underway this year and planned for 2027. So as a reminder, the PAX Fund, which stands for Pedestrian and Cyclist Safety Fund, was approved in 2012 by City Council. It's generated from revenue from utility franchise fees, customers of CenterPoint Energy and Xcel Energy in Edina. It generates about $1.5 million annually, and this this money is used exclusively for improvements to the non-motorized transportation network. So you can see from this picture, it kind of shows all of the things that fall into that category. That includes sidewalks, bike lanes, associated signage, and pavement markings.
You might want to let folks in the audience know here tonight that they might have noticed this on their utility bills, that small fee that they pay, which is the franchise fee. You want to go into that in a little bit more detail before you proceed?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned, this fee is generated from, or this revenue is generated from utility franchise fees. So all residential and commercial customers of CenterPoint and Xcel Energy will see, if you look on your monthly bill, you'll see a line item there. I don't know exactly how it's coded on the invoice or on the bill, but that money accumulates and goes into this fund. Our utility franchise fees, a portion of that revenue goes to PAX, another portion of it goes to our Conservation Sustainability Fund, and then there's a portion that goes to street light improvements, and then there's a portion that goes to a rotary reconstruction fund as well. In 2025, we had $1.8 million available to spend. That includes $106,000 of funds that rolled over from 2024. Of that, we spent almost $2.4 million on PAX items, which is an overage of about $555,000. That overage is primarily due to projects that were either grant funded or otherwise reimbursed through other funding mechanisms. And that funding, the majority of that funding is expected to be recouped in 2026. The two main projects that impacts include the Roslyn Park pedestrian bridge, which a lot of preliminary design occurred in 2025, as well as the development of our Safe and Equitable Mobility Action Plan, which was funded by a grant through the federal Safe Streets and Roads for All program. Of the money that was spent, 45% was spent on new pedestrian and bicycle facilities at a cost of about $1 million. $41,000 was spent on maintaining existing pedestrian and bicycle facilities. This includes funding that contributed to our sidewalk inspection program. And then final payments for previous projects was about $300,000 for a total construction expenditure of $1.4 million. In professional services, we spent $814,000. For promotional activities, we spent $5,600. Kind of other miscellaneous costs, maintenance and supplies, that was about $10,000. And then my salary comes out of the Pedestrian and Cyclist Safety Fund at $142,000 for total administrative expenditures of $972,000. Wrong one. These are the main projects that were constructed in 2025 with PACS funding. In a project noted with the A there is the Vernon Avenue and Highway 100 interchange project. The PACS fund wasn't the only funding source, but it did contribute funds to this project. And that includes new shared use paths, curb ramps, and APS push buttons. Noted with letter B is the President's A and B roadway reconstruction project, in which we constructed new shared use paths on Washington Avenue, Belmore Lane, a new sidewalk on Monroe Avenue, and curb extensions throughout the project area. Letter C notes the France Avenue sidewalk from 60th Street to 62nd Street. I'm going to keep pressing the wrong arrow. The PACS fund also paid for some new bike racks at the Edina liquor store at Grandview. We bought 3 new racks. And the PACS fund also paid for rectangular rapid flash beacon equipment at various locations throughout the city. This includes at Eden Avenue and Grandview Square, Braemar Boulevard and the mountain bike trail crossing, and 62nd Street and Pamela Park. Looking ahead, or I guess looking now at projects that are in construction or will shortly be underway, these include the Roslyn Park pedestrian bridge. Again, the PACS fund is not paying completely for this project, but is contributing some funding to it. On West 72nd Street, as part of a trunk sanitary sewer rehabilitation project, we're building a new shared use path on 72nd between Cornelia and France Avenue. Park Lawn Court is up for roadway reconstruction this year, and as part of that, we are adding new sidewalk between Park Lawn Avenue and the end of the cul-de-sac. The Wooddale Avenue Bike Lane project, which we will discuss in more detail later tonight, is related to a scheduled overlay project. The France Avenue sidewalk from 62nd Street to Highway 62. I'm particularly excited about this because this is the last segment of sidewalk that is missing on France Avenue. So once we complete this, we will have sidewalk on both sides of France all the way through the community, which I think is a very significant milestone. The sidewalk inspection program is continuing in 26, including miscellaneous sidewalk panel replacements, grinding, curb ramp improvements. And then the PACS fund has already purchased 10 new bike racks in the 50th and France district, and I'm working with the Business Association to hopefully install more here later this year. Looking ahead then in 2027, major projects include the Olinger Boulevard sidewalk from Vernon Avenue to Villa Way. This is a project that was recommended in our Active Routes to School plan. Interlochen Boulevard is also up for roadway reconstruction between Blake Road and Mirror Lakes Drive. Our pedestrian and bicycle master plan recommends bike lanes and shared use path as part of that project. West 69th Street between France Avenue and York Avenue is up for a bituminous overlay in 27, so we'll be looking at potentially adding bike lanes along that corridor. And then the Vernon Avenue Multimodal Improvement Project from Eden Avenue to Interlochen Boulevard kind of extends the work that we've done with the interchange project to try and extend those multimodal facilities out to the east. So we're looking at shared use paths and a potential road diet for that section. We have received a Hennepin County funding through their cost share program, but we've also submitted for Met Council regional solicitation funding to help cover the cost for this project. And then the sidewalk inspection program, as always. And with that, I will stand for any questions you may have.
All right, good. Questions? Councilmember Jackson and Councilmember Risser.
Yes, thank you very much for the report, and I know it's always we want to do more, but it's exciting that we're doing what we're doing. Regarding the sidewalk inspection program, I'm going to say what I remember, and I'll have you correct me, that this came out of a Public Works efficiency study that we did and staffing study that the Public Works Department was being interrupted constantly. Can you come fix this sidewalk? Can you come fix that sidewalk? It was very inefficient use of staff time. And so by creating this sidewalk inspection program, we can proactively fix things, but also not waste that time of having to drop a project and go get it fixed. Am I remembering that correctly?
I believe so. I'll defer to Director Milner if he has any clarification, but that sounds right to me.
That's correct.
Yeah, so this is just a really good use of staff time to not be so broken up. So people have wondered, what's a sidewalk inspection program? And it's an efficiency program. So, and we want to keep our sidewalks usable as well. So
Yes, absolutely.
great, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Risser.
I have questions about two bridges. With the Roslyn Park Bridge, I keep looking at that image, and it really looks like the cladding is hanging below the bridge deck. And Director Milner did send me images, but I still see the cladding hanging below the bridge deck.
That's not the case. I can meet with you and share the graphic again, but MnDOT required us to have the bottom chord of that bridge visible for inspections, and the graphic I showed had the cladding above that bottom chord.
Okay, because it really looks like it's hanging below the bridge deck. But thank you. I couldn't see the two, for the tunnel, I couldn't see the two bridges, and maybe it's
And I can sit down with you if you'd like, and we can look through that.
That would be great. With the Grandview Bridge and the changes we need to make in order to make it compliant with ADA requirements, I'm not seeing that.
That is in our CIP as just a placeholder and unfunded until we hear back from the DOJ. We still have not heard back on any timing when we have to do the project. So it's a placeholder until we hear back from our legal, from
Okay,
the
so
League of Minnesota
still
Cities.
no date.
Still no date.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? This required no action on our part. It was
Correct,
information
just
only?
information.
Yep. All right, thank you, Mr. Scipione.
Thank you.
All right, we've got another report. We call it the bag fee policy report. And Marissa Bear, our sustainability manager, has this report for us.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Council members. Marissa Bear, Sustainability Manager, and I'm here tonight to give an update on the carryout bag fee report. So if you recall, as of July 1st, 2024, most merchants in Edina must charge 5 cents per carryout bag. This includes plastic, compostable, paper, and reusable bags. Businesses are required to self-report the total number of bags distributed as well as the total value of the bag fees collected, and we have 18 months worth of data from 74 unique businesses. During the annual sustainability update earlier this year, City Council requested additional analysis on the bag fee reporting data to determine the impact of the ordinance. So to do that, staff completed a comparison analysis focused on 3 grocery stores and 31 retail stores who submitted data for both years, so we have a more representative sample of year-to-year changes. For the grocery store and retail stores analyzed in the data set, the estimated number of bags distributed per store did decrease from 2024 to 2025. It's estimated about a 9% average decrease for grocery stores and an estimated 10 to 37% average decrease for retail stores. That smaller percentage is from analyzing just a smaller set of 14 businesses as we looked at some anomalies in the data. And what these decreases show us is there is likely some change in store operations, such as prompting customers if they would like a bag, and then also a change in customer behavior where people are bringing their own bag when shopping. I do just want to note there is a high variability in the data set, which impacts both accuracy and completeness of the data that we are looking at. This data is self-reported, which can be unreliable due to a bias to report the desired outcome, such as a decrease in bags distributed or submission of data just to comply. There is a lack of ordinance enforcement, which could result in underreporting the actual number of bags distributed, where a business might not track or charge for each carryout bag. And then we also know there are fewer businesses reporting than we expected, with several large retailers who are assumed to distribute a large volume of bags not reporting their data. As we look at the impact of the bag fee, the goal of this ordinance is to change behavior and reduce the number of carryout bags in Edina. Assuming this data is directionally accurate, there is a decrease in the carryout bags in Edina being distributed both in that grocery and retail sector. We know this bag fee is being retained by the businesses to use at their discretion and through self-reporting. We know that they're using it for operational costs, supplementing their own bag costs, internal sustainability initiatives, or just general expenses. And this bag fee is user-based. If you bring your own bag or decline a bag, you don't pay. It's estimated the average family of 4 uses about 2,000 carry-out bags a year. If all those bags are in Edina, it's about $100 a year that an average family would pay if they did not bring their own bag. And then we also want to acknowledge that as a regional shopping destination, this bag fee revenue is not only from residents, but also regional visitors, which means we are potentially influencing behaviors beyond the city of Edina. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions? Yes. Councilmember Risser.
I was at an Edina establishment buying a bag of ice, and I was offered a bag and asked, and I said, sure, because I kind of wanted to see what happened. And I looked at the receipt, and I wasn't charged for it. And as I go and I look at this list, I'm not seeing that enterprise listed, and it was the Edina liquor stores. And so I'm wondering why they're not part of this program.
Yep, government agencies do not charge the bag fee because it would be considered a tax.
And we don't have authority to issue that kind of tax.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes. Councilmember Agnew.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the additional analysis that you did on this, because I think before we were really trying to understand, is this having an effect? So I appreciate kind of the deeper analysis that you did. I'm curious, is there any way we can get at this point any data from before we put this fee in place, or is that not possible?
Not possible.
Okay. And then is there anything that we can do as a council to help drive better engagement in the data reporting? Like, how can we partner with you?
Yeah, I think continuing to encourage and the businesses you interact with, either through in your official capacity as council members or even just as a resident who may be shopping, noting the bag fee. We as staff, we do education outreach, we do reminders, but that can only go so far. So as folks are interacting with businesses, we just really encourage sharing that information of if they're a business that must charge the fee, to charge the fee, track it, and then comply with reporting when we send that request at the beginning of each year.
Awesome, thank you. And I think one thing I'd be curious too to have next year, as we continue getting more and more data for this, or if we're getting to that point and we're getting less data, like even giving us a heads up maybe ahead of time, and we can potentially help shake the trees a little bit on that. But I'd be curious to almost see like a, carbon offset reduce or whatever like that figure might be of here's the impact in terms that we talk about sustainability in. I think what you just said too of like, on the flip side, if a family uses 2,000 bags, that's $100. That's meaningful, but what's the impact that we're having, So just more of that storytelling I think will be super valuable, but I think that this is really great and appreciate the additional analysis you did.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. I mean, it's the one I asked last year. We didn't have complete data, but I continue to wonder whether the juice is worth the squeeze, frankly. Folks, please. Yeah, and the reason I mentioned that is because Manager Neal said we don't charge it at the liquor store because it's a tax. We can't charge the tax, so we don't receive the money. The money just stays with the grocery store or the retailer. So I think last year Jerry's put an extra, I don't know. Can you remember, Marissa, what it was they put in their pocket last year?
Give me 1 minute. They did report. We have their data. I just need to find them on the list. Jerry's Foods in Edina in 2024, in that 6-month period, distributed 469,730 bags for a total, so revenue would be 5 cents of that. I didn't put the 5 cents in my table here, and I'm not good at mental math on the
It's tens of thousands of dollars that Jerry's made off bag fees.
The scale of 100,000.
Because somebody forgot to get the bag out of their car like me. And others maybe as well. Well, anyway, I know we continue to say, well, let's look at it again next year, but I still wonder if the juice is worth the squeeze, and I don't think it is, but that's my opinion. Councilmember Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So I struggle with this one as well, because it feels like it's having an impact, right? So the data kind of suggests that, but we don't really have we don't know if the bag fee actually causes people to bring their own bags or not, because like Member Agnew asked for the data prior to that, and so we can't really compare to that. And so then I was hoping that by now other cities would have started doing this. And so far it is Edina, Minneapolis, and Duluth does it. In the I guess Duluth is in the metro area. We'll say metro. When you get outside of Minnesota, there are obviously other cities that are doing it. And so what I struggle with is I don't know that I can give any direction on how to figure out if it actually is if the juice is worth the squeeze. Like I can't think of what I would ask for. Clearly having the before picture would help. So I appreciate, we asked for the data, you have the data, so I definitely appreciate that. We'll just have to kind of figure out how we want to go forward.
Councilmember Risser and then Councilmember Agnew.
I've also heard from residents that some establishments are now charging 10 cents a bag or more, and it would be really helpful to collect that data if that could be worked into the information that you gather. So maybe next year ask, how much are you charging for the bag? And then we could see if maybe they go to 10 cents and it has a bigger impact. I have no idea anyway, but that would be an interesting data point.
We can certainly add that to the reporting form as an optional field.
Councilmember Agnew.
Thank you. Last thing that I'll say, I just want to remind council members that we elected not to invest any additional city resources into collecting data. So I just want to appreciate, I know that a lot of this work you're just trying to fit in, but it was a conscious effort of let's not invest more into this. And so when we're frustrated with some of the holes in the data, I kind of understand where that's coming from, but appreciate all that you've been able to pull together.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Pierce.
Promise is the last thing. Just kind of anecdotally, I was in Eden Prairie at the Lunds and Byerly's after dropping my daughter off for dance, and an Edina resident saw me coming out, and she said, you're driving over here to save the nickel on the back. So, wow, that might be an isolated data point. I mean, it is on the top of people's minds as they are out shopping. So, and that does have some implied value, right? So I definitely get that. So thank you.
Hey, you made me think about going to Trader Joe's and you get a real nice tall bag there and it doesn't cost anything and it's great for recycling. Right. Yeah. All right. Thanks for that report. Thanks for being here. We'll figure out what to do here. At least have a conversation about it downstream. I think we should put that on the to-do list to revisit this at some point in time here in the near future. So we're going to go to the reports and recommendations portion of the agenda, and the first thing there is Resolution 2026-38, which contains some proposed donations to the city of Edina, and we have to, by state law, accept those donations, and we have to accept those donations with a supermajority of the council. So Resolution 2026-38 has this reporting period 2 donations in it. Is there a council member who cares to move Resolution 2026-38?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Jackson moves. Councilmember Pierce seconds the adoption of Resolution 2026-38, which accepts donations on behalf of the city of Edina. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye.
Councilmember Risser.
Aye.
Councilmember Agnew.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Resolution 2026-38 is approved. Donations this reporting period were to the Park and Rec Department, And the Edina Rotary Club gave a very generous gift of $14,000 for a public AED donation. And then the Edina Community Foundation gave Grandview Square Park, donated $2,870 for use over there at Grandview. And next on the reports and recommendations portion of the agenda is item 8.2, which is the student commission appointments. And Manager Neal and Councilmember Jackson have the introduction there.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll give the intro and then turn it over to Councilmember Jackson. You know, we've had a student commissioner program in Edina for almost 20 years, and this year we're going to make the appointments tonight. The appointments come from an interview process that Councilmember Jackson and Energy and Environment Commissioner Hilda Martinez Salgado completed for us. They did interviews on June 4th, 15th, and 29th. These are for appointments that begin September 1, 2026 and end September 1, 2027. We had 32 applications. There are 14 positions, and I'll turn it over to Councilmember Jackson to tell us who they are.
Yes, thank you,
for
Manager
that.
Neal.
Go ahead. Councilmember Jackson, you worked so hard on this, and we greatly appreciate it from the colleague standpoint, you know, that you undertake this work with Commissioner Martinez. And so I think you did all the interviewing and you've made some recommendations. Now you have some recommendations for the council tonight in terms of appointments.
Yes, so this will, when we vote, we're voting to make them our student commissioners. So our student commissioners are full members of the commission, except they're non-voting members. As a former Energy and Environment Chair, I just loved having the students. They bring the perspective of the future to our work as a city. I am really optimistic about the future of our city. The students who applied, I think every year I think these are the best students ever, but they really were an outstanding group. And any one of them would have made a good commissioner. It was a difficult set of decisions. But what we have to do is we have to kind of balance, you know, we don't want everybody to be a senior, so that then we like to have one returning and one coming forward, so we have a continuous, there's a learning curve to it. And with that, I am very proud to announce, nominate the following students to be student commissioners. For the Arts and Culture Commission, Marcus Trin and Julia Peterson. For the Community Health Commission, Annika Gadia and Nishka Pandey. For the Energy and Environment Commission, Genevieve Lassig and Alexander Taisho. For the Heritage Preservation Commission, Olivia Duplessis and Caleb Edelson. For the Parks and Recreation Commission, Anna Harrington and Anu Kalp Janagal. For the Planning Commission, Leonore Just and Zitian Chen. And for the Transportation Commission, Parth Rawat and Liam Hart. And they are an outstanding group of citizens, and I'm happy to put them forward to be student commissioners.
All right, do you move the matter?
I move the matter.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Pierce seconds the motion to adopt a slate of students that Councilmember Jackson read to us for the various commission appointments: Art and Culture, Community Health, Energy and Environment, Heritage Preservation, Park and Rec, Planning Commission, and Transportation Commission. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agnew?
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce?
Aye.
Councilmember Hovland, or
Aye.
Mayor Hovland, I'm sorry.
Yep. Aye.
Councilmember Jackson?
Aye.
Councilmember Risser?
Both.
Aye.
All right, the slate of candidates is approved. All those student commissioners are appointed with a term starting September 1st, 2026 and ending 9/1/27. Thanks for that great work again. Really is appreciated every year. All right, now, I don't think we've had this many people interested in a topic for a long, long time, whether it's online or here this evening. So we're going to have a discussion about it here. Staff's going to make a presentation. The Transportation Commission is going to make their presentation. And then council's going to have a discussion. I think Manager Neal is going to weigh in on the matter as well before we get to the discussion. And then, so let's go now to our city engineer, Chad Milner, who's going to kick off the conversation.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council. Before we get into the details with Andrew, I just wanted to ground the discussion and really explain why are we here. So this project is about preserving and maintaining our street pavements in a fiscally responsible way. Mill and overlay projects provide an effective, practical, and cost-effective method to extend the service life of our streets. It extends the service life 10 to 20 years. The street base along Wooddale is sound. There's value left in that street. So if we replace the entire street with a street reconstruction before it's due, we're losing some of that value and not being fiscally responsible. Or we're not following sound asset management practices. So mill and overlays occur when the pavements have a pavement condition index between 45 and 75. This street is in the 60s and 70s, and in fact, the southern half of the street was reconstructed in 2005, and the adjacent properties were assessed for that work. So we really don't want to be down there because we want to get at least 50 years. So with any pavement management project, mill and overlays, or street reconstruction, we look for opportunities to meet some of the other guiding documents and guiding principles of the city. And what we're doing here tonight is really looking at that pedestrian and bicycle master plan. So this mill and overlay provides an opportunity to look at removing parking and adding a bike lane to meet that guidance in that plan. So in my opinion, the main question here tonight for the council is whether or not to remove the parking to install a bike lane. If we decide to keep the parking, there are just some minor adjustments that Andrew will go through in detail later in some graphics. So again, I want to emphasize the question tonight is not whether we should delay this work. We have equipment rented, we have people ready, and we're ready to go in a week to start this work, a week or two. And so we shouldn't delay this work and conduct a street reconstruction project. Wooddale is not anywhere close to needing reconstruction from a pavement standpoint. Wooddale is a municipal state aid street or an MSA street. We're severely underfunded in our MSA streets because we and other MSA cities don't get enough funding through the gas tax or the tab fees to keep up. We have miles of other MSA streets that should be done that have a greater need than this one. So based on our needs, if you would say do recon, we wouldn't even be here for 20 or 30 years. And knowing that the south half was already reconstructed 20 years ago, we shouldn't be there for another 30 years. We should be doing this proactive maintenance practice. So with that, I'll hand it over to Andrew, provide more of the details. And I just want to emphasize we really need a decision tonight on this matter. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Director Milner.
Thank you. So as Director Milner mentioned, this project was initiated by the Public Works Department as part of our proactive pavement management program. The project area here is Wooddale Avenue from Wooddale Lane to Valley View Road. This corridor right now has the only north-south bike facility in the northeast quadrant. You can see on this map here, it has a combination of shared and standard bike lanes, which I'll go into more detail later. But it connects to existing bike facilities on Valley View Road and Wooddale Avenue to the north and to the south. Bituminous overlay has been scheduled for this summer. And that overlay provides us an opportunity to potentially reconfigure the roadway to meet future needs of our community. So I'll start off with existing conditions. We've broken this segment or this corridor down into 3 segments. The northernmost segment between Wooddale Lane and 56th Street is 35 feet wide. That's measured from the face of curb to the face of curb, so the travelable area, excuse me. This section includes a 5-foot southbound bike lane, an 11.5-foot southbound travel lane, an 11.5-foot northbound travel lane with a shared bike lane, and then a 7.5-foot northbound parking lane. Between 56th and 61st Street, the street narrows to 31 feet wide. And here we have a 12-foot southbound lane with a shared bike lane, an 11.5-foot northbound travel lane with a shared bike lane, and a 7.5-foot northbound parking lane. And then the southernmost block between 61st and Valley View Road, parking is already restricted on both sides of this segment. So both the northbound and the southbound direction are 15.5 feet travel lanes with shared bike lanes. This section of Wooddale Avenue carries about between 3,600 and 6,700 vehicles per day. As a 2-lane urban roadway, it has an estimated capacity of 10,000 vehicles per day, so it is operating currently well within its capacity. Observed 85th percentile speeds range from 26.7 to 34.8 miles per hour, and the posted speed limit on Wooddale is 25 miles per hour. Within the last 10 years, 19 crashes have been reported within the project area. 5 of those crashes occurred between Wooddale Lane and 56th Street. 14 of those occurred between 56th Street and 61st Street. In terms of severity, 5 of those crashes resulted in a minor injury, 3 resulted in a possible injury, and 11 were property damage only. In terms of mode, 1 of those 19 crashes involved a pedestrian, and that resulted in a minor injury. 1 involved a cyclist, and that resulted in a possible injury, and 17 only involved motor vehicles. As part of this analysis, staff reviewed available parking capacity on Wooddale and the adjacent side streets. I was aided in this analysis by Megan Hager-Garbin, who is our Minnesota Green Corps member. We calculated that there are approximately 129 on-street parking spaces within the project limits that serve 148 adjacent properties. And then broken down by segment here between Wooddale Lane and 56th Street, there are approximately 79 on-street parking spaces. Between 56th and 61st, there are about 50. And then again, from 61st to Valley View Road, there's no on-street parking. I wanted to make a reminder that per our city code, on-street parking for the whole city is limited to 6 hours. And on-street parking adjacent to the project area is available on almost all of the side streets on at least one side, with the exception of 54th Street, Lexington Avenue, and 58th Street. So the results of our analysis showed that for the majority of the properties on Wooddale Avenue, for most of them, their closest adjacent side street parking is less than 0.1 mile away, or about a 2-minute walk. There are some properties adjacent to those streets that don't have on-street parking, where the adjacent closest on-street parking is about 0.2 miles away, or about a 4-minute walk. This project was reviewed for compatibility with our approved plans and guiding documents. Among those include the comprehensive plan. This project supports multiple goals in the transportation chapter related to multimodal transportation, sustainability, and safety. Within our Living Streets plan, this project supports the stated goal to balance the needs of all modes of transportation. That includes pedestrians, cyclists, motorists, and transit riders. Within the pedestrian and bicycle master plan, this project supports goals to increase the number of community members who choose to bike in the community, either for transportation or for recreation. Within our climate action plan, this project supports goals to reduce emissions and increase public transit ridership. There is no transit service on Wooddale itself, but Metro Transit Route 46 operates on 50th Street to the north. In addition, the Metro Transit E-Line BRT service operates on France Avenue, just a half-mile away from this project area. Additionally, our recently adopted Safe and Equitable Mobility Action Plan identified multiple segments of Wooddale Avenue in the roadway safety priority network as either a high priority or a medium priority. And as a reminder, the stated goal of this plan is to work toward reducing and eliminating roadway fatalities and serious injuries on all roads within Edina. There were a couple other factors that we included in our design. As Chad mentioned, Wooddale Avenue is a municipal state aid road, and so as part of that, we have to adhere to state guidance for widths for travel lanes, parking lanes, and bike facilities. We also looked at the Minnesota Bicycle Facility Design Manual, which provides guidance on best practices for bike facility design and implementation. As noted in the staff report, using the range of observed 85th percentile speeds and traffic volumes within the project area, this manual recommends either conventional bike lanes, separated or protected bike lanes, or a side path, which is an off-street bicycle facility. So now I'll get into there were 5 options that were developed for consideration for this corridor. Option 1 would provide dedicated one-way bike lanes in both directions for the entire corridor. For the north segment between Wooddale Lane and 56th Street, this would mean a 5.5-foot southbound bike lane with a 2-foot buffer, 10-foot travel lanes in both directions, and then another 5.5-foot bike lane with a 2-foot buffer. Between 56th and 61st Street, where the street narrows, that buffer is eliminated. So again, you'd have 10-foot travel lanes in each direction and a 5.5-foot bike lane in each direction. And same for the southernmost segment between 61st and Valley View Road. This option would eliminate all on-street parking between Wooddale Lane and Valley View Road. Option 2A seeks to balance the impact of the bike facility by, instead of having two separate one-way facilities, combine it into one two-way facility. So this specifically is a two-way bike lane on the east side of the corridor with partial parking. So this option preserves parking between Wooddale Lane and 56th Street. You can see here the section shows, again, 10-foot travel lanes in each direction, an 8-foot two-way bike lane, and then a 7-foot northbound parking lane. As noted in the staff report, this section in particular doesn't comply with municipal state aid design standards because it has the minimum for each component. And the only way you can get away with having the minimum component for your lane, for your travel width, for your bike facility, and for your parking is through a variance through MnDOT. South of 56th Street, we would have again, 10-foot travel lanes in each direction and continue with that 8-foot two-way bike lane with a 3-foot buffer. The graphic here shows a vertical element, a delineator in that buffer. That's an optional treatment. That's kind of the difference when we talk tonight about a protected bike lane versus a buffered bike lane. A buffered bike lane would be this example here on option 1, where there's just a painted buffer on the street, versus a protected bike lane has that and a vertical element to provide separation between the modes. So again, that option is optional, and we would have to review placement of those delineators given the number of driveways and intersections along the corridor. Option 2B is similar to 2A, with the exception that there is no parking proposed on the corridor. So the sections between 56th and Valley View Road remain the same, with the 10-foot travel lanes in each direction, 8-foot two-way bike lane with a 3-foot buffer. The change then is the section between Wooddale Lane and 56th Street, where you would have a 4-foot southbound shoulder, 10-foot travel lanes, and then the 8-foot two-way bike lane with the 3-foot buffer. Option 2C is kind of the mirror image of option 2B, where that bike facility is on the west side instead. So between Wooddale Lane and 56th Street, you'd have the 8-foot two-way bike lane with a 3-foot buffer, 10-foot travel lanes in each direction, and then that 4-foot shoulder would be on the northbound direction on the east side. Between 56th Street and Valley View Road, you would also, again, have the 8-foot two-way bike lane with a 3-foot buffer and the 10-foot travel lanes in each direction. And option 3 is the existing configuration. So this is the same as kind of a recap of what I provided before, where we would maintain that existing combination of shared bike lanes and that one dedicated southbound bike lane between between Wooddale Lane and 56th Street. As part of this process, we engaged members of the community on this project and changes that we were considering. We solicited feedback through an online survey through our Better Together project page. In the months that we had the survey open, we received 247 responses. Of those who responded, 38% live on Wooddale within the project area, 48% live less than half a mile away, 88% drive 2 to 7 times a week on Wooddale, 53% bike less than once per month on Wooddale, 27% bike 1 to 2 times a month, and 20% bike 2 to 7 times per week. 44% of respondents said they utilize on-street parking on Wooddale 2 to 7 times per week. 42% said they utilize on-street parking less than once per month. 48% said they would be unlikely to bike on Wooddale if it had dedicated bike lanes, while 31% said they are likely to bike if dedicated lanes are provided. 67% opposed upgrading the bike lanes on Wooddale, and 72% opposed removing on-street parking. We also kind of filtered these responses back looking specifically at the properties that are adjacent to on Wooddale Avenue within the project area. So within that group, we had 93 respond to the survey online. 99% said they drive on Wooddale 2 to 7 times per week. 53% said they bike on Wooddale less than once per month. 26% said they bike 1 to 4 times per month. And 21% said they bike 2 to 7 times per week. 84% said they utilize on-street parking on Wooddale 2 to 7 times per week. 56% said they are unlikely to bike on Wooddale if it had dedicated bike lanes. 7% said they would be likely to bike if there were dedicated lanes provided. 90% of respondents said they oppose upgrading the bike lanes on Wooddale, and 99% opposed removing on-street parking on Wooddale. The Transportation Commission also had an opportunity to provide feedback on this project. The Commission has approved 3 advisory communications. Back in February, the Commission adopted an advisory that recommended review of, quote, viable all ages and abilities design alternatives for the corridor, end quote. This advisory communication was also adopted by the Energy and Environment Commission the following month in March. In May, the Commission recommended that Council adopt, quote, a protected bike lane, which includes a vertical and horizontal separation element, end quote. And then just last week at their July meeting, the Commission approved another advisory that recommended, quote, pausing the overlay and instructing staff to craft a road reconstruction plan for Wooddale that would widen the street and accommodate both parking and protected bike lanes. I'm joined tonight by Taylor Brushwine of the Transportation Commission, who's going to provide a little bit more background into the Commission's advisory communications and their perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Scipione. Welcome, Mr. Brushwine.
Hey, Mayor, members of council, good evening. Thanks, Andrew, for letting me share the views of the Transportation Commission here. Usually I'm here at the beginning of the meeting, rushing into 3 minutes. I'll still be brief, don't worry. Thank you. So yeah, like Andrew said, we've been involved with this project for a long time. Way back in February, I should say I was not on the commission at that point, but that was the first advisory communication, and we've had 2 since. So I want to just talk to why we thought this project was so important, why we thought it was necessary for us to have these 3 advisory communications, and then I'll briefly describe our recommendations. So I first want to acknowledge just where we're at with our active transportation network, and specifically our bike network. And so this is a map and scores from peopleforbikes.com, which is the source for basically bikeability of cities, or bike friendliness of cities. And I wanted to show this to highlight that we are not only far behind our counterpart first ring suburbs in St. Louis Park and Richfield, who are near the top of that list, but we're also behind our rural neighbors in Minnetonka, Hopkins, Bloomington, Shakopee, Chaska, Chanhassen, and Eden Prairie. And this happens for all kinds of reasons. There's a lot that goes into this. But one of them is that we've missed opportunities, and we've missed recent opportunities in this area specifically. 58th Street crosses Wooddale. Concord Avenue is 4 blocks away from Wooddale. Those both came up in the last 6 years. Both had bike facilities proposed, but those were ultimately not approved and implemented. I want to acknowledge the current pace that we're on to implement our pedestrian bicycle master plan. That was adopted in 2018, and at current pace, we have over 100 more years to implement that plan. So this is one reason that we found it important, is we had recognized this pattern of missed opportunities, and so we wanted to do everything that we could to make sure that this wasn't another missed opportunity. Our fear is that we continue to miss these, and we continue to become the island as the only city that's not investing in our active transportation. Another thing that we talked about in our advisory communications, those first 2, were protected bike lanes. And I want to step back a little bit and say no one on the commission is a transportation engineer. None of us are traffic engineers. Our charge as a commission is to advise you as council as to how a project aligns or doesn't align with our city guiding documents. So what we're working from is our city guiding documents. And there is a ton there. There's 2,000 pages, and we just added, 300 with CMAP. So there's a bunch of information there. And our charge is to distill that down and advise you on how we see it relating to project. So that's where this is related. So what we see in all of those documents is, you can paraphrase it down to one of the major goals of all of them, is we need more people taking less trips in cars and using a different mode. So specific to this project, that's getting more people on bikes and new people on bikes. So we're not necessarily looking at the, quote, avid cyclists and how we improve things for them. They're out there already, and they're going to use the full lane. They're going to go regardless of the infrastructure. What we're looking for is how we get new people on bikes. So kids, families, seniors, someone going to the grocery store or the park or going to get a bottle of wine. And one of the things that we've found, it's an intuitive solution, is a protected bike lane. And it's intuitive because if you make something safer, more people are going to feel comfortable there, more people are going to use it. It's intuitive, but it's also backed up by research, and that's all this slide wants to show is this isn't just our opinions as traffic commissioner or transportation commissioners, but we found some data to back that up as well. So that's what drove our two first advisory communications. So with those two reasons in mind, building out our network and building out a safe network, these are our recommendations. Our primary recommendation is that you adopt option 2B or 2C for the reason that they provide a protected bike lane for the full length. And that is the thing that will get new people onto bikes. We also recognize that you've received a significant amount of pushback from residents in the room that removing parking in whole is not a viable option. So we understand that that may not be a viable option for you to vote for. So our secondary recommendation is to pause and to reevaluate and not to throw away the mill and overlay altogether, but to pause and make sure that we have it right for these few reasons. First is the actual road widths weren't known, or at least they weren't shared until June, just last month. The second is this is a uniquely important north-south corridor in some of our densest neighborhoods in the city. Protected bike lanes don't make sense on every street in our city. They don't make sense on a majority of our streets in the city. But they do make sense on this corridor because it connects schools and businesses and lots of important things. Reconstruction would allow for a solution that serves everybody. I think that was something that you've heard, that if there was a solution to save parking and provide safe biking infrastructure, people are in favor of it. And this last one was one that the timing of it, or the length of it, was a little bit surprising to me, that choosing to do the mill and overlay now locks us into that option for 10 to 20 years. If we keep the status quo, that's going to affect all the kids that go to those schools for the next 10 to 20 years. On a personal note, I have a 2- and 3-year-old. It'll affect them for their 9 years at their school at Southview campus. So for those reasons, for its importance and for the amount of people that are interested in it, we think that we need to pause, make sure that we get it right, and see if there's a solution that works for everybody. Thanks. With that, I'll hand it back to Andrew.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Brushwine.
This is my last slide of my presentation here. Just in conclusion, going over the 5 options that were presented in the staff report. Option 1, in the opinion of staff, supports our strategic goals as outlined in those guiding documents, however, is not favored by the adjacent property owners. Option 2A is not recommended by staff because it is non-compliant with MSA design standards. Options 2B and 2C support our strategic transportation goals, but they are not supported by the adjacent property owners. And option 3, which is the current configuration, does not support our strategic transportation goals, but it is supported by the adjacent property owners. So these are the 5 options that we are seeking direction from council on tonight. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions for Mr. Scipione, and before we get to that, I just wanted to go back to our engineering chief and ask Director Milner to restate what you said before, because Mr. Brushwine had posed this idea of kind of wait and see. Let's analyze what we could do with the right of way and just hold this off for a number of years until we figure out if it makes any sense to do this in a different way. So what are your thoughts? I mean, I took a note. I heard you say the work needs to start next week. Need a decision tonight. Anything changed since the presentations were made?
No, I would not hold off doing work. Even if we said we're going to reconstruct it, we wouldn't be back for 20 or 30 years. And we just reconstructed the south half. How can you go in front of those residents that just paid an assessment less than 20 years ago and say, now we're going to be back and we're going to rip it all up after they had 100% assessments 20 years ago? When we were in front of them 20 years ago, we said, this is a 50-year design. I know things change, but I wouldn't recommend pausing, and I wouldn't recommend street reconstruction just from the funding shortages, from the assessments that we did with these residents previously, and just the timing and other needs that we have. One of the primary ones is Wooddale Bridge. We can't afford to do that one for 3 years, and this is that same funding source. We think we're going to do it in 3 years. We're still trying to figure that out. So that's the kind of projects that we're up against, is made real infrastructure with a bridge that we need to get replaced. We don't have funding for.
All right, and then when you say this was, we told people that this was a 50-year design and we did this work 20 years ago, I take it you mean that, is that concurrent or consistent then with option 3?
Yeah, that's why we're doing the overlay. Every 20 years, we do an overlay. So this meets our proactive pavement management program, just like we reviewed with the council about 15 years ago when we asked for more funding, because our PCI was really low, and we're like, we got to fix our streets. So we got that influx, and now we're up in a much better position. But we are, because we're doing these overlays when we should, and we're following asset management practices.
Okay, I'm going to go to Manager Neal here for a quick comment before we have any
thank you, Your Honor.
questions.
You know, usually staff do our very best to give you the technical facts of how to build a road, how to build a sidewalk, how to build a water line, a sewer line, and we leave the discernment about public opinion to you. That's what you're good at, and we're good at the technical side. But there are a few projects, and particularly the ones that fall into the life safety critical infrastructure, like a water line or a sewer line, where we would proceed with doing a project even if it had a lot of public opposition to it, because it's a critical life safety project. This is not a project like that. I would recommend, we see the preponderance of the input has been in favor essentially of option 3. I would recommend to you that option 3 is what we ought to do. One of the reasons I don't favor a pause is when we pause any infrastructure project, it just means we got to pay more for it, and even if it's just a matter of months. But the other reason not to pause is that pausing doesn't relieve the anxiety or the concern or the fear or whatever it is that people are feeling that live adjacent to this street. They are here to seek some peace of mind from the council, and I think you ought to give it to them. So I'm recommending that you pursue the option 3 tonight.
Shame on me. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting, we try to keep the decorum proper here, and I understand the enthusiasm, but we try to tell folks, hey, there's a lot of people with different opinions in this world, and in this sanctuary of the city council chambers, we try to maintain a decorum level where we don't clap, we don't boo, we don't make comments that are uncalled for. So, but I didn't tell you that. So, mea culpa, and understood. I'm going to turn to Councilmember Agnew, then Councilmember Risser.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for Director Milner on this. You said the south portion was reconstructed. When I look at kind of the 3 different portions, do you know what the range of that reconstruction was 15 years ago, 20 years ago?
The cost or the location?
The location.
The limits.
Yeah.
So that reconstruction project was from 56th Street to Valley View Road.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question is, you mentioned that we have the equipment rented, ready to go to do the overlay. If we were to do a pause, are there other streets in our queue that we could pivot that work to so that we wouldn't be losing anything out on having this equipment rented?
Probably not, because we prepared 2 years in advance. So we are doing catch basins and concrete work right now for 27 overlays. We are having CenterPoint Energy come in or the other private utilities and fix your stuff now so you don't dig through the new pavement. So those areas for next year aren't ready to go yet. So it would just be a loss, and now we'd push this to next year. Some of those 27 ones will get pushed to 28. It's just a compounding issue of just pushing stuff. So we don't have anything ready of substantial length for if we delayed this and wanted to put it somewhere else.
Thank you. So when we say loss, do you have a way to quantify how much we would lose as a city if we did pause it? Are we out $5,000 for rented equipment? Are we out $100,000 because of wasted, I don't know,
I think it's more the value of the street. I mean, the pausing is just we're not keeping up. We have a very prescriptive pavement management process, and if we miss a year, we're going to see that in the numbers. So it's scheduled now. We literally say we're going to do it year 20. We're at year 20. The rental stuff, we would just return it early. We would have to find other stuff for our main crews, street crews, to do the rest of the summer. This is a major one they're working on after they get done around Cornelia School. So financially, probably not a big number. It's more of just that impact of the infrastructure.
If I may add just an order of magnitude, so as noted in the report, this project area is over a mile long, and we typically do about 5 miles of overlays per year. So you're talking about postponing over 20% of the work that is scheduled this year.
Okay, and so if we did postpone it, continue humoring me on this, we wouldn't spend the money this year for that. Could we not roll that over into next year and do 6 miles next year?
Potentially, that's a discussion for council with the budget. Typically, if we don't spend it, then it becomes part of the surplus, and there's a discussion there on what to do with that. I would say we barely can do 5 miles now. We'd be bringing in contractors then, and then it's going to be more expensive to do it. We try to do it all in-house, but we can't do 6 miles in-house.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Risser and then Councilmember Pierce.
I requested some images be shown, but this whole situation where we need an answer, we need it tonight. We knew about this 2 years in advance, and it is so frustrating to hear we didn't get the accurate measurements until June. And I know that's true because I walked part of Wooddale with a proposal and one of the members from the planning or the Transportation Commission to discuss a proposal that would have kept the parking and addressed these situations. And we had the number that it was 38 feet wide. It wasn't, it was 35 feet wide. And so for that to happen is a problem, and there's a pattern, because when you go back, and I really encourage people to watch the June 24, 2021 HRA meeting, where the funding is approved for the pedestrian bridge over at Grandview over the railroad tracks. And there was a lot of concern from, well, it was a small group of people, but concerns about ADA issues. When that project was first introduced, the HRA members were told that it was going to land on the lower deck. And then, you know, it kind of got, you know, movement, and then, oops, no, it's got to land on the upper deck. And so that was a huge thing, and now the DOJ has ruled that it's not ADA compliant. So this is a pattern and a problem. We need to have accurate information, and the Transportation Commission should not be getting this in February. It made me think of the process that we go through, and I know it's road reconstruction, and we're just talking about a mill overlay, but it is one that has a profound impact on communities, and I'm wondering if we need to set policy that if parking is going to be removed, and that's the proposal, that it really should come along with all of the other road reconstructions that are reviewed at our special meeting in December, so that we can have a public hearing and get feedback. And those public hearings are so amazing. With the road reconstruction for B and C neighborhoods last year, what was really, or 2 years ago, it was really fascinating because along 62nd Street, the proposal from staff was to put the sidewalk on the north side of 62nd Street, which would have cut across all these driveways, which are conflict points. It ended up going on the southern part, so it was parallel right next to the fence along 62, so it was an even unbroken sidewalk. Conflict points are something that I am I really think about, and it concerns me. And road safety is something that I really think about and concerns me. I lost my nephew to traffic violence. So this has been something that I've been living with since the beginning of 2019, and really trying to think about what we can do to reduce the numbers. And it's so frustrating with this change, you know, to see how consistently driveway access back and forth is, we need to be investigating it more. And if you look at your community engagement slide, where we're talking about 93 responders on Wooddale Avenue, to read that 99% drive on Wooddale Avenue, residents on Wooddale Avenue drive along Wooddale Avenue 2 to 7 times a week. Like, you all should be on some talk show explaining how you are not using your cars. That's absolutely phenomenal. And the thing is, if you look at that number and you can say, okay, there's probably people who are driving more, but that just wasn't captured. The survey only allowed you to go up to 7. You couldn't go any higher than that. And then I talked to a resident who, and this was so interesting to me because she was saying how her parents would have to walk a lot further. And I was thinking, well, why don't you just let them use your driveway? They don't want to use the driveway. They don't want to have to pull in and back out because they're concerned they might hit somebody. Okay, and so we needed to know more numbers about how frequently people were actually using their driveways. We didn't get that. We needed to know, with this change, what would be the potential increase in the number of people using the driveways. Because it's not just the number of driveways, conflict points, but it's the number of uses that are happening at those conflict points. I live on Ashcroft, and I do bike down Wooddale for part of Wooddale, but I get on St. John's and I go as far as I can, and then I scoot over, and then I do my little Wooddale section. But that, and what the analysis did was it only looked at Wooddale. It didn't really, I mean, the safety map does include other parts, but it doesn't show what the potential impact would be to people who are using those roads. And here is a picture that I took last night along Wooddale. And I know people are on different sides of this issue, but it seems everybody is united on the fact that we need to do better when we're talking about the west side of Wooddale and all of the foliage and growth that is going on there. And I watched how bikers will actually kind of jut out and go toward the center of the road because there is stuff that they have to contend with. If we could go to the next slide. There are parking signs that are embedded deep in the brush, and this is one of those. We also received an email from an Edina resident who I was out with last night, and he was measuring from the official marker that the county put in to try to figure out what exactly was going on with the fence that divides Country Club from the public right-of-way. And there's supposed to be 7 feet. And as you go down and you walk that, it changes. So it's 7 feet, then sometimes it's 5 feet something, and sometimes it gets down to 4. We are not, and we're talking about what we need to do, maintaining our infrastructure, but also just taking care of the things that we've got. That hedge has got to go. We've got to figure out what is going on there. And we had a gentleman here talking about survey lines. But we need to know for sure what, is there encroachment that is happening in that 7 feet space? And that sign, that no parking sign, I don't know if that went up when the parking was removed and the bike lane went in, but once upon a time, that was grass. That was not all of this growth. And we keep having to pay to have it trimmed back. We need to take that out. We need to work with the country club. We need to figure out, what is happening there, because that public right-of-way on that side, that's important, and that needs to be maintained. But I do want to say, for anyone here who is really concerned about bike safety, it's not just missed opportunities. It's also not following state statute, or excuse me, our city code, and that was what I was commenting on with the minutes that were being changed, because we do have section 24-130, and this pertains to Vernon Avenue. And all of you, maybe you're not as familiar with the Keys site, but there's a huge number of people who showed up. We've had 6 commercial proposals for the Keys site. Every single one of them requires the driveways along Vernon remain, okay? But if we were enforcing our code from the get-go, we would probably not have pursued any of those, because it's a through lot. It's guided for residential development in our comprehensive plan. If we did that, it would just open onto Eden Prairie Road. And think about Vernon. It's a 30 mile an hour road. If you could stop that driveway access, you would have this huge span where you could have a barrier and you could protect that bike lane. And, the way that we allow really super small lots to be developed is very problematic. All of those projects far exceeded the legal buildable area. And in the Wooddale Valley View neighborhood, we had that happen with 4404 Valley View Road on Valley View. again, both of those sites were former gas stations. They're tiny little triangular sites. And by allowing these developments that are oversized to go in and continue to have access off of collectors and arterials, that's presenting a real safety issue, okay? And so we need to really, look and try and make sure. So I hope those of you who are really promoting bike safety keep engaged, because there probably will be a 7th commercial plan for the Keys site. But I am frustrated by this whole process. I feel as if we needed to have more information up front. We need accurate information. We need to know how wide the street is. We also need to know more about the use that is going on, the impact to the surrounding neighborhoods. I wanted to support this. And when it first came out, I was thinking, of course, this is a no-brainer. You're adding more bike infrastructure. It makes so much sense. But I don't have the data in order to back that up. And I am very concerned about safety and conflict points and the lack of information that I need in order to understand exactly what the risks are. So for me, this has been incredibly frustrating. And I do think I can understand the philosophy or the idea behind pausing this and, making sure that what we do makes sense and is well researched and, not something that we're just kind of falling through because we're told we need an answer tonight. And I've been so focused on, are we going to have parking or not parking versus what do these projects, possibly look like? So anyway, I'm very frustrated, and thank you. I am done for now.
Councilmember Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I had a ton of notes. This wasn't quite the sequencing that I thought we were going to do when I was thinking about my comments. And I'll try to be brief. 2 thank yous. One to everybody who responded. We probably got 200 emails, if not more, phone calls. And so always appreciate the level of engagement. Thanks to the staff, when you really look at what was originally proposed, and Director Milner talked about this, they were trying to be opportunistic. We have this project, we have this master plan, maybe we can advance that in this particular instance because we have this project sitting in front of us. And so I applaud staff for trying to be innovative or opportunistic in getting something done, making our dollars go a little bit further than they would on their own. As I walked Wooddale several times, the thought that I had was to really do this right, you need a shared use path, probably from Valley View all the way to 50th. And the only way you're going to really be able to do that is with street reconstruction, right? You can't do that with paint and just a resurfacing project. And so that's kind of where I was leaning. So that would have been pausing, but appreciate the way we started by clarifying, well, if we pause and we do street reconstruction, here's when that would likely happen. So I appreciate the clarity there. I will acknowledge Member Risser in that some of the data was not as accurate or clear, but that's, I think, every project that I've ever worked on, whether it's in the private sector or in the city, as things move forward, things change, and you have to adjust to the information that you have. And so one of the things that I will mention, I don't respond to every email, especially when you get 200 of them, but I kind of randomly will select. And so I don't know if people that I responded to are here tonight or not, but one of the things that I said is when you think about this, you think of it as a project. Our decision is about parking on Wooddale. Like you kind of see the sign, save parking on Wooddale. And to me, this project was never about parking or not parking on Wooddale. It was really about, so I disagree with Director Milner here. I thought it was about safety and how can we figure out a way to have safe pedestrian pathways down Wooddale. So that's kind of how I thought about it. It would be hard for me to answer that question by saying a segment of homeowners can no longer park in front of their homes. And so I say that because no matter what the decision is tonight, and I support Manager Neal's suggestion, but even if we don't do anything, we still have 4 problems to solve. And so we can't just make the decision, vote on it, and then we go about our merry way. That's not how city government works. We still have the same problems that we have to solve. This is just not a solution that we're comfortable moving forward with. And so the 4 problems I see, if we postpone or just continue with resurfacing, we still have to figure out how to advance the pedestrian master plan and provide safe pathways in our city. But for sure on Wooddale, that may take some other solution, but we still have to solve that. Street reconstruction. I do think that that is probably the way to do this, to be able to put a really nice shared use path all the way from Valley View. There's a sidewalk there. There's space to do that, but it's 10 times more expensive than resurfacing that street. So we still got to figure that out. Parking on Wooddale, I still think that will change if we somehow come up with a solution to add this bike lane. Parking might be on the other side of Wooddale versus where it is today, right? So things will shift, things will change. And then the last one, accurate and clear data, the one that Member Risser mentioned, making sure that we have the best data at the most opportunistic time that we're trying to make a decision is something that we can continue to refine as we go. But after the decision tonight, we will still have to solve that challenge for the next project that comes before us. And so I agree with the recommendation, but I still will be asking us, how are we going to make those 4 things that I just mentioned? How are we going to improve on all 4 of those? So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I also had a lot of notes that I'm not going to read through. I just want to say that change brings out both the best and the worst in us. And on both sides of this conversation, I want to acknowledge the best of us. I think this was a very innovative idea to advance a city goal. And everybody I've talked to, except for maybe 1 or 2 people, and I've talked to thousands and tens of thousands of people, if not more, in this city, they want to make it more walkable and bikeable. And our staff and our Transportation Commission came up with an idea to advance that. And I thought it was creative, and it looks at what we're doing and looking at a practical way to do that. On the other side, I've had lots and lots of very good conversations about the lived experience of Wooddale Avenue. And I really appreciate it. And they were thoughtful, they were neighborly, everybody listened to each other, and it really brought out the best of the neighborhood feel. So I want to acknowledge that on both sides. Change is hard, and I really appreciate the good dog conversations. You talk about you have a good dog and a bad dog inside of you, right? And we heard a lot of the good dog talking, and I want to acknowledge that in each and every one of you. You know, one of the comments I want to say, because everybody's making good jokes tonight, is that when Wooddale Street was designed, Amazon was a river in Brazil, right? And it's not that now. And so we have trucks, delivery trucks that we couldn't even begin to imagine in 1935 when this was all begun. And I want to acknowledge the change in the use. I came up with option 4, and so Mr. Scipione, if you could bring that up. And I think, Member Risser, your pictures are very moving. We have a weed control ordinance in Edina. I think we should use it and clear off those hedges where it's on the right-of-way or it's imposing. So option 4 is basically option 3, but widening the bike lane on the northern part of Wooddale Lane. It's very dangerous. When I was driving down to a neighborhood meeting, I saw a lady and she was on the white line the whole way because she couldn't navigate what is called the bike lane now. And I think this is a very simple solution to just add a little distance to that and get out our weed control. Either send a letter to the country club, cut your hedge back, or we will cut it for you because it's really impeding people's ability to ride their bikes. So I would like to see option 4 be our option. Like I said, it's exact same as option 3, except the bike lane from Wooddale to 56th is widened. It makes a little difference. The final thing I want to talk about is stewardship. So we have 4 core values that we look at in all the decisions we make in our city. And it's sustainability, equity and inclusion, health and all policies, and stewardship. And that means financial stewardship. And I cannot, in good conscience, tear up a perfectly good street at this point and put off other streets. Look at 70th Street. If you have driven down 70th Street recently, it desperately needs to be redone. That's MSA dollars, our municipal street aid dollars. 70th Street would be pushed back, and we would be tearing up a very good street on Wooddale to do that. And so, I take the use of public money very seriously. And I can't in good conscience. The other thing is if you have the protected bike lanes, we'd have to buy new equipment to clean the snow off. And that's another expense that's unanticipated in doing that. So while I really do want to make this a walkable, bikeable city, and I applaud people for coming forward with ideas to do that, I just can't in good financial conscience approve that because of the loss of value of the existing street.
Be in favor of option 4, but are comfortable with option 3 as well.
I don't see why we couldn't just do option 4. It just widens the bike lane. It doesn't do anything different. It's just a matter of paint.
No.
If I may provide some additional context. So Member Jackson, you are correct. This is essentially, it's a combination of option 3 and option 1. So the middle section is between 56th and 61st Street remains the same as it is today.
Can
you
bring it back up on as you talk through it?
Bring back option 3?
Or it wasn't on the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Option 4, yeah.
So again, that middle section between 56th and 61st Street would remain the same as existing. Parking would be maintained. The north section between Wooddale Lane and 56th Street is essentially the same. The difference is that the southbound bike lane, instead of being 5 feet, becomes 6.5 feet, and we take that 1.5 feet from the southbound travel lane. So we're achieving some traffic calming by narrowing that southbound travel lane to expand the bike facility. The other difference is the very southern block between 61st Street and Valley View Road. This is the same as option 1, where because parking is restricted here already, we have the opportunity to narrow the travel lanes and add the bike lanes.
Thank you.
Why is parking restricted on that segment from 61st Street to Valley View Road when the road dimension is the same as it is from 56th Street to 61st Street?
I don't have the reason why that parking restriction went into place, but it's been in place for several years.
And that's adjacent to the commercial, right? Town Station, the Snuffy. So it feels like there was a commercial. There might have been a turn lane that was needed. You're not in front of residential properties, so the parking, I think, was not needed there. But we don't have the history.
There's a commercial building there, but there's several houses from 61st Street to Valley View too, I think. Anyway, you still, Member Jackson?
I propose option 4.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Councilmember Agnew, and then I'll come back to you, Member Risser.
Thank you. And again, thank you for the work that everyone put into this. I do think that this corridor is a great option to have a dedicated bike lane. And I do want to see it happen. And I think building off of what Councilmember Jackson was saying, I think that there are a lot of ways in which that can happen. And so I wouldn't say that necessarily means we need to go out and buy special equipment, but is there a future in which it's a grade separated shared use path? I think that there are a lot of options out there. Investing into a protected bike line or shared use corridor here really supports our city plans. We went through all of that, and this is one of those really great north-south connectors where I would like us to invest into better pedestrian and bicycle safety. And I don't want to do that if it removes parking along the entirety of Wooddale. And the reason for that is my priority is safety. And my fear is that if we take parking off of Wooddale and we push it onto those side streets, and those side streets today don't have sufficient sidewalks through and through, I'm worried about the downstream repercussions of impacting the safety of those pedestrians with additional parking along those streets. I also think about, pillars of our community, looking at the church and knowing how little parking they have today. I don't want to do something that would impact them. And I think at the end of the day, right, thinking of these options that remove parking asks a small group of residents to absorb, I think, a disproportionate impact to the benefit of the broader community. So personally, I'm okay pausing because I still feel like we have a lot of questions here. We have a lot of questions of if we do decide just to do the overlay, which I'm not saying we shouldn't do, which one do we end with? How do we slice up the bike lanes? And I feel that because of some of the measurement snafus that happened, and just how things were layered in, I feel pressure, right? And I don't like having this pressure of we need to make a decision and it needs to be now, because I think that it would be rushing what is an imperfect plan, when if we spent more time identifying, now with all of this additional information that we have, what could that downstream better plan be? And I'm not suggesting we rip up Wooddale and do a full reconstruction next year or even in the next 5 years necessarily. But what I want to understand is, when would we do it? Or when is the northern portion up for reconstruction? What does that timeline look like? And it just feels like I still have so many unanswered questions that I'm not very comfortable moving forward with something that is an expense that doesn't progress us towards all of the stated city goals that we have according to those 5 plans that were listed out. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Risser, follow-on comment?
I believe the lack of parking from 61st to Valley View is because there is a turn lane and there is all that commercial activity. But it is really interesting when you're biking along Valley View and you go up and you come along that curve and you're getting onto Normandale, the bike lane just vanishes.
Or on Wooddale, you mean?
There's no, or along Normandale, there's no bike lane anymore. You go, and then the bike lane vanishes when you go into the Wooddale Valley View intersection and you are turning to go east onto Valley View. And there you're going right by View 44, which was given an easement into the public right-of-way. Okay, so those plantings and the steps coming down from those porches, that's in the public right-of-way, which means it's very hard to expand that 5-foot sidewalk. It's hard to have a boulevard wide enough so you can plant an oak tree. Okay, so we need to stop allowing the public right-of-way to be, disrespected. I think that is disrespectful to allow that to be taken away. And I do want to come back to those conflict points and allowing driveway access when our code says we shouldn't. And the rationale was, with Vernon, it's a county road, so we don't have to apply our city code, which is really frustrating to me. But I do really feel as if I'm on the same page with Commissioner Agnew, just because this is rushed. If it feels as if we don't really know what we're doing, but at the same time, if we don't do it, we fall behind. And we have got to have a process where we don't put elected officials in this position. And I'm not running again, so I have about 5 months. But this really, I hope whoever wins my seat is not put into this kind of position. And I think this wasn't us receiving a grant and there was this little tiny period of time to work with this. We had more time. And I do think we need to really button down those things that we're going to do in order to make it a more bikeable, walkable community. So there's things that we can do. We could start following the code. We could, not allow it really, and we need to talk about things that cause where the crashes occur, where the conflict points are. And it was also frustrating to look at the data and not have that. Were these crashes that happened because somebody was backing out? All of that information was not there, and I know we've talked about data already, but it is important for us to have that if we're going to move forward in a meaningful way. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ruser. Yeah, I think this proposed notion has been in all of our heads for many months. My wife finally talked me into going on one of those Viking river cruises in early June, and we got to Vienna. We went to Budapest and up the Danube to Vienna. We got on a bus in Vienna, and we're driving along, and I'm looking at how they're all set up there. I mean, it's unbelievable how they separate cars from pedestrians, and anybody has non-motorized bikes too. They've spent millions of euros on these systems, retrofitting these ancient cities. And so then I thought, well, how many people in Vienna own a car? Well, it's 42% of the people in Vienna households don't have a car. So they've got to put their emphasis in different ways. And when you look at the number of cars per household in Edina, it's 2. So this idea that we're going to somehow escape this car-centric society of ours, I don't think it's realistic. So, like Councilmember Pierce, I appreciate all of the input, and I wish we could do something like Vienna. But like our engineer told us, Director Milner, we promised people when we did the street reconstruction 20 years ago and assessed them, this was a 50-year plan. So to think about pausing and going back and then redesigning something that tears the whole street up to do something like it's a miniature version of what they do in Vienna, it's unfair to those people that have already been assessed once, to me. So I appreciate the input on the issue. I mean, think about all the people we've heard from, the residents, cyclists, church members, church leadership, country club patrons and leaders. Delivery, I don't know if we've heard from delivery services or not, but in doing my analysis, we probably should have. I don't know, maybe we didn't have time to stop. I tried to distinguish between interests and positions, because the positions expressed have been, we need a protected bike lane, and then the other position is we cannot lose parking. But when you look at underlying interests, they were cyclists want to feel safe, residents want reliable access to their homes, the church wants the congregation to be able to attend services and not walk too far because they don't have any dedicated parking. The country club wants overflow capacity during events. The city wants to reduce speeds. And incidentally, that was one of the top things that we heard, was that let's think about reducing speeds. And I think Councilmember Jackson's onto something there, because when I did some research, you look at those 11.5-foot lanes from Wooddale to 56th. I looked at the National Association of City Transportation Officials data, and it said you can safely reduce lanes of travel to 9 to 10 feet. And it has a direct correlative effect on a reduction in speed, but it doesn't increase the crash risk. So I think you're onto something there. It's something I've been thinking about too, is that could we go to 10 feet and address the speed issue that so many people raised, because we're just talking about paint here, right? And then you expand the size of that, the width of the bike lane on the west side, deal with the hedge issue, and you get something that's wider. So that's another thought. So for me, as we've listened to staff and absorbed testimony from interested parties, and I still wish that we would have had, I talk about data, current bike counts, projected bike use, all that. Maybe it's built that they come, but I didn't see any of that. And while I believe we can all agree that protected bike lanes generally increase both actual safety and perceived comfort, this street has experienced only one reported bicycle crash in a decade with an uncertain possibility of an injury, which begs the question, can we achieve a meaningful improvement in safety and comfort without eliminating parking serving residents, the church, and the country club? So a common concern, as I mentioned earlier, was the speed on Wooddale, and that caused me to think about hybrids. And from a broader perspective, the question was for me, well, what's our objective here? And somebody else mentioned that too, achieve the highest level of bicycle comfort and safety, or achieve the overall greatest improvement in safety and mobility. And well, a fully protected two-way bike lane may provide the greatest comfort for cyclists and safety. It comes at a cost of eliminating all the on-street parking used daily by residents and at least weekly by a church with no off-street parking and a country club with significant events. And so the council, to me, should consider all of that. And for me, personally, when I weighed that on balance, I came down to maintaining the status quo. Now, I say that with the notion in mind that because speed was such a factor, I do think, because we're only dealing with paint on the road, expanding that existing bikeway to the east a little bit and shrinking those lanes of travel could reduce speed and should reduce speed based on the data that I read and not increase the risk of accidents. So that's something to think about in terms of option 4. I don't know if I like everything about option 4, but it's something to think about. I want to go back to Director Milner because when did the Edina Transportation Commission get information? Was it February that the streets were, the data was put together?
So this project has been in our capital improvement plan since I can't recall when exactly the current CIP was adopted, but so this plan was a project in there. Staff started to evaluate it at the beginning of the year. The Transportation Commission solicited a presentation from staff to learn more about this project. At that time, back in February, I was in the very early stages of developing it, so didn't have a lot of information beyond what was in the CIP. So that's how the Transportation Commission involvement began.
Okay, and so when did all that start?
February.
Yeah.
And the CIP was adopted 2 years ago, so
Yeah.
December of '24.
So the data's been out there since at least February on the road widths and
Some
parking lane
adjustments,
widths.
so it was wintertime, we did some with aerial photography versus in the person, so there was some slight changes, like was mentioned
Yeah.
in those measurements.
So talk to us again a little bit about the decision-making process and why you think it's important to make a decision tonight.
I don't think we should delay the proactive pavement maintenance. We have a plan, we need to follow it. I don't know what other options we would have. This has been analyzed for almost 2 years. I mean, remember.
We got
Hayden
4
News
options now.
said
You're
there's
saying
more
make a
options.
decision.
To meet state aid standards, there's really not many more options out there, unless we recon.
At its heart, this is a pavement project
Yeah.
that provides us an opportunity to look at the roadway configuration. So again, we are trying to be opportunistic in looking at what are the possible options available to us. But at its heart, this project was driven by a need to proactively maintain the pavement to extend the lifespan of the street.
And if we're not moving curbs, we're gonna come back with probably the same kind, I mean, it'll be half a foot here and there, similar to option 4, right? Just tweaks, it's not gonna be big changes.
What about option 4?
That was a tweak of a foot or 2 here and there. That's the only thing we could do, because we still gotta meet state aid standards.
Yeah,
So I don't see-
Councilmember Jackson, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things that when I was talking with Mr. Scipione about this, for the what's called the sharrows, where you see the arrows in the middle of the street for the bike, that has to be 12.5 feet, is that correct?
There's no requirement in MSA guidance or in state statute for how wide that has to be, but generally You want to keep, some guidance says between 12 feet to 14 feet, but that also kind of works counter to the idea of narrowing the travel lane for traffic calming. So in this option here, for example, where on that north section between Wooddale Lane to 56th Street, I wouldn't recommend going narrower than that 11.5-foot northbound lane to provide enough space for a car and a bike to navigate more safely.
Yeah, I thought about that too, as I was looking at it. 10 foot in each direction might be a little bit difficult on the east side where you want to accommodate parking and bikes moving on that side too.
That width is generally not recommended.
And people getting out of cars.
Correct. Yeah. Correct, yeah. A 10-foot width is generally not recommended for a shared bike lane.
Councilmember Jackson.
I think I've made my point. I just wanted to point that out to you, that's why we landed on the widths that we did.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's helpful, in terms of bike safety, and it preserves the parking on Wooddale, which I think is important. So, Councilmember Agnew.
Thank you. Do you know when the last reconstruction was done between 50th and 56th?
To my knowledge, not 1954.
We're going to be doing that north half when the bridge comes. We're going to be doing Wooddale Lane to 50th, because that all needs to be done as part of the bridge when we get that scheduled and funded. So there's just a few blocks in between there. 56th to Wooddale.
So would we do that at that time as well, or you're saying no?
We still think the pavement's in good shape. The underlying subgrade is not showing major failures, and I think we can get another 20 years based on what we're seeing in the field.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pierce, what are your thoughts about option 4?
I am comfortable with option 4. We kind of talked about it a little bit, Member Jackson and I. So I think I'm okay with that. The only comment I'll make, I don't feel rushed. I think we do need to make a decision so that we can move forward. And the reason I don't is because I think to really have a shared use path that has a protected bike lane for the length of Wooddale requires street reconstruction. And we could pause for the next 45 days and we still aren't gonna have street reconstruction. And so I think whatever option we come up with is kind of a tweak of paint here or there. And I remember Director Milner saying this the first time this came up. All we really are talking about is resurfacing and paint. So I don't really feel like postponing and waiting actually gets us anything.
Councilmember Jackson, then I've got another question on bike safety.
Yes, thank you. So, Director Milner, how much does it cost approximately to reconstruct a mile of, or one block of city street?
Typically, we say about $2 million a mile. This length is
1.36.
So I would say but that's just the basics. If we're doing shared use or bike or parking or everything you widen, it goes more.
Okay.
So it's multi-million-dollar to reconstruct the street.
Okay, thank you.
And then we've got the inflation factor. It probably wasn't that long ago when it was $1.5 million a mile.
Potentially, yeah.
Well, and that's roadway cost alone, which during a reconstruction, we would look at upgrading the underground utilities as well. We didn't do that assessment for this project because it's just a surface overlay.
What are the pros and cons? Let's talk about option 4 here in that 6.5-foot southbound bike lane. In some of the schematics that you see for bike safety, they have a bike lane and then they have a buffer. And they've got, a big wide piece of paint that creates the buffer. It's not a physical separation like a bollard or a grade separation, but how would you do that over there if we adopted option 4 and we had a 6.5-foot southbound bike lane? How would you try to maximize safety for people using that bike lane when we're only using paint on the road?
Thank you for the question. So because given the context of it, given where the curb, where the seam and the curb is along there, and given the issues with the hedge that have been mentioned adjacent to the country club, I wouldn't recommend putting a buffer in this section. I would just stripe it as a 6.5-foot bike lane so that cyclists can use that full width of the facility.
Okay. All right,
Give them the
thanks.
most space to reduce potential impacts with the cars.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. Can we paint the bike symbol in the bike lane too, so that people don't, because sometimes they look like, all over the city, the signaling is different. Sometimes it's a bike lane, sometimes it's a parking, and it looks identical. So if you could paint the bicycles in the bike lane, that'd be great.
Yes, so part of this project would be to install, if for the sharrows that are there existing, if you approve this option, we would replace those in kind, and then the current southbound bike lane would be replaced with bike pavement markings.
And the same then from 61st to Valley View Road as well. There'll be pictures of bikes in the bike lane, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I will say on that section, there will need to be some, it won't be exactly this for the entirety of that, because we have to transition to the north and to the south, to the south to the traffic signal, and then to the north, there'll be a transition from that dedicated bike lane to a shared facility, but it'll essentially be this section.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Risser, is this conversation on option 4 helping you at all get comfortable with option 4, or do you still feel like you have too much uncertainty?
I feel like I wish I had known about option 4 before I showed up here.
Well, that's why I put
Yeah.
in the packet.
Okay.
You got it on Friday.
I got it on Friday.
Voted on Thursday.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate that. I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place, and I think I am more comfortable with option 4, because delaying it and just knowing the amount of work that gets pushed back, but I am not thrilled to be in this position, and I do see a pattern. This happened with the Grandview Bridge. There were so many pieces of information with the tunnel under France that were problematic, and anyway, I think I can vote for 4.
Okay. Councilmember Agnew, this conversation help you at all? I'm sure it did in terms of understanding it more, but I don't know whether it caused you to change your mind or not.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's really helpful just to understand when those alternatives are, because I still think for me, what I want to see is probably a grade separated shared use path. I think that's the ideal. But if the street quality is so good, and if we're literally talking that's 20 years out, that we can still get life of that street, I was thinking of that northern section. Like, in some cases, we're going to have to do this piecemealed, right? And so even if we were having the northern section be reconstructed before, I could deal with some piecemealed nature of that. But hearing that that's still, I don't even know, years out of even needing that, potentially 20 years with the life of this overlay, I think it makes sense to do the option that at least advances some of our goals. The one part that I'm wanting to make sure that we follow up on is this has raised concerns on the Buckthorn or whatever it is along the country club. So we need to have a plan for that I think is outside of what we do with the overlay. And maybe it's something we can bring up on subsequent city council meetings.
I can reach out to the country club. We pretty much do every month and every summer. It's time to trim it again, they trim it. It's time to trim it again, but I'll have a broader discussion with them to see it's time to look at maybe removing it. But
Yeah, because I've also heard from residents that they're trimming it, and that doesn't seem like a good use of our community energy. So, thank you.
Councilmember Risser?
It can't be just trimming it and continuing trimming it. We have got to get rid of those trees. They have to come out, especially on our property, the city property. I think that's putting us at risk. They have got to come out. It can't just be trimming.
Well, they might not be on our property.
There's definitely the right of way that is at least up to 5 feet. And it would be good to get clarity on where this.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. That was good. Great discussion. So is there a motion directing staff to implement option number 4 for the roadway reconfiguration operation to implement as part of the 2026 bituminous overlay project on Wooddale Avenue? from, what is it, Wooddale Glen all the way to Valley View.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion by Member Jackson, second by Member Pierce to adopt option 4, which would direct staff on which roadway configuration option to implement as part of the 2026 bituminous overlay project on Wooddale Avenue from Wooddale Glen to Valley View Road. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Risser.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Councilmember Agnew.
Aye.
All right, well, the option 4 is selected. We're on the way to getting Wooddale redone, overlaid. Thanks. Thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. Don't forget the soccer thing.
No, I appreciate that. I know, and you know what, I have
Right.
Hi.
It was a beautiful day. First nice day we've had.
I was just telling Paul, weather. Just before you got here. Bye. Got it, that's it exactly, that's the way.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, I'll just do a quick introduction, and then Steve Benke of Donay Homes will make the full presentation. So the proposal here is to tear down an existing duplex. This is at the intersection of 52nd and Grandview Lane, and they would build 4 townhome units. The property is currently zoned R2, so a rezoning would be required. The comprehensive plan guides this site for between 4 and 8 units an acre. The proposal is for about 14 units an acre, so this would require not only the rezoning, but a comprehensive plan amendment to high-density residential. So those would be the 2 big requests. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission back in, I believe it was April. It was generally well-received. They were comfortable with this being a corner lot, and the site adjacent to the east is high-density residential as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Benke to provide the details.
All right, Mr. Benke, welcome. Oh, yeah, you better have something that
I can talk loud.
causes you to be recorded.
Yeah, I have to do that kind of a
In
thing.
the planning commission, I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Okay. Yeah, it tends to drop a little bit. It gets a little heavy, but no, great to see you again. And this is a project that you've seen in the past in a different configuration. The landowners are continuing to try to improve their property. So as Carrie pointed out, they have a duplex on the corner of 52nd Street and Grandview Lane that they've owned for well over 25 years. The building was built in 1955. It is in such disrepair that one of the units has not been leased. It's currently rentals. One of the units has not been leased in over 5 years. With that said, sort of kind of run you through the details here. As we pointed out, it's 4 townhome units, 1 4-unit building. We obviously have a track record of this kind of project throughout the metro and also just around the corner. Obviously, the townhomes on Hankerson sold out as fast as we built them. We're currently building the single families that were previously approved by the council just up the street from that. Yes, the adjacent properties are R1, R2, PRD3, and PRD4. I will point out that the predominant zoning around this area is PRD3. They are all 4- and 5-story apartment buildings that hem this in. The adjacent uses are predominantly medium to high densities, and so this area definitely is ripe for change. The project essentially tries to utilize the current setbacks of the adjacent buildings to demonstrate where the building should sit. It acknowledges the significantly larger right-of-way of 52nd Street that we also discussed for Grandview Townhomes. It's a 80-foot right-of-way instead of a 60, so there's an additional 10 feet on each side of the road. So the distance to the curb is not the same as you would otherwise expect. We do want to honor the front yard setback of these streets so that hopefully as the rest of the block redevelops, we are establishing a fairly significant streetscape line. And then because of this corner lot, and it isn't the only corner lot on this block, we do have the ability to remove the garages from the front of the building and provide a common drive for the building at the rear. It would basically be the same as the existing building, which currently accesses 52nd Street for its garages. As I pointed out, the surrounding uses, we have 4- and 5-story apartment building right behind this building. We essentially have it in front of the building, and we also have it to the south. The transition does seem to be pretty strong right along 52nd going to the north, but there is an R2 also on this side, which is the group home. And we do see that there is an issue with 52nd Street and that it essentially doesn't go anywhere. It is essentially a short connector between other streets in the city here, all in the Brookview area. Current density is 6.7 units an acre, so even now it is not really quite low density, even though it's currently guided that way. The project density is, I mistyped that, it's actually 13.4. The difference is not significant, but we're only adding 2 units to the area. We would be requesting the rezoning and updating the comprehensive plan. The total hardcover would be 67.5, and that's comparable to what we had with the Grandview Townhome project. And we did handle the extra stormwater management and things effectively there. Everything's underground. It's all maintainable. 9 Mile Creek loves it. The neighbors love it because they're not looking at rain gardens or something else that is in the yard. The building hardcover is 44.8, but our current coverage is just under 30. I pretty much already reviewed that. I think the key to this whole idea is that we're trying to present the same kind of a streetscape that we were able to succeed with for both Grandview Townhomes right around the corner on Hankerson, as well as the Hankerson single families. They're all utilizing the alley, and we're essentially creating a short private alley for this project. Units would have full-size 2-car garages. There wouldn't be any parking outside the garage, so you're basically putting your cars inside, and then there is on-street parking, just as there is currently. We would be building 2 stories. There are other 2-story buildings on the block. Some of them have a single story adjacent to a 2-story or a split level type 2-story. But the 2-story above a garage does already exist on the lot. As of right now, we would typically offer them as finished basements later. If you want us to finish them, price is comparable to that. Units would have up to 4 bedrooms and 3 baths, and that is consistent with the kind of client that the McDonald's are currently getting for the 1 unit that's available, and previously with the 2 units that were available in the duplex. They are looking at renters that are long-term, that have some families, so the need for the multiple bedrooms is definitely indicated in this area. Building was built in 1955, 1 unit's leasable. Peter will address some of the other concerns that they've had. The other unit has had multiple plumbing issues. They lived in that unit for years and dealt with the maintenance and repairs, and what they're with right now, and he can address more what that means to them, but the repairs to bring that into a livable condition are fairly large. We noted that the staff report listed an assessed value, and clearly if you have a unit that's not livable, the assessed value that comes across in the county records really doesn't mean anything. The building has the value, essentially the 1 unit is lot value only. In reading the staff comments, there was a comment about the significant deviations from PRD3 and how that presumably made this project not appropriate. Well, as I brought up before in front of this body and Planning Commission, I think it's more of a comment on the PRD zoning versus a more typical townhome zoning. this building is being looked at the same way a large-scale apartment building would be, because right next door we have the PRD apartment buildings, PRD 3 as a matter of fact. The setbacks required for a building like that should not be applied to a building in a residential scale like this townhome building is. So acknowledging that the deviations are needed is simply an observation that probably PRD 3 is not a great zoning classification to put this building in, but it's the only one we have available in the current city ordinance. We note that the site is well located within the City of Edina density study that University of Minnesota provided for the city. And I know it's not a formal document, but it definitely has some direction that was offered to the city. And we saw that the higher density and the transit are both indicated as helpful to the city's carbon neutral goals. And the residential scale of these units, I think, is obvious compared to the apartment buildings behind them. It is a better fit for a residential neighborhood than something more dense. As Carrie noted, Planning Commission said, hey, how about you try to put 6 units in there? I saw that. I do have a way of doing it that probably wouldn't be as obvious as you think it is, but we're fine with this, and we believe that it's the correct number. And again, I really wanted to focus on this whole thing about how this little enclave, this current enclave is really surrounded by the PRD uses and is definitely kind of overwhelmed by them. There was also suggestion that the reason that the zoning along this street might have been due to the street configuration because the apartment buildings access directly off of Vernon, but this block accesses directly off of Vernon. 53rd Street, Grandview Lane. It's no different than the apartment buildings on either side that have private drives accessing Vernon. So the access into this area is the same as the apartment buildings. I'm really focused on the aerial photo. I mean, it is such a key descriptor of what happened here. Clearly, the buildings that are there preceded the apartments to a degree, and the apartments basically surrounded them. If there's a spot along Vernon, I think that is appropriate for density, higher density, modestly higher density. This is probably one of the best ones because of what surrounds it. Yep, climate action plan. It's pretty clear that one of the big goals with Edina is, especially with what was just being discussed, is to try and help with the carbon neutral. And it's very clear that we have an area here that is very proximate to transit, very proximate to a walkable retail area. And again, that is the exact kind of area that a product like this is perfect for. And the density study elaborated on that quite well. I'll stand for questions. Actually, Peter, would you like to talk a little bit about the building itself? Or would you rather? Okay. Well, why not stand for questions first?
Yep. Yes, thank you. Questions? Yes, Councilmember Risser.
Can you go back to the image that was the aerial showing?
I've got several, so.
Yeah, that one right there.
I figured we'd want to talk to it. I want to make it easy.
Okay. I'm trying to, okay, so in the compliance table, it says the proposed setback for the front is 17, what am I missing? Okay, so you're doing 30 feet, oh, okay, I got that, now that makes sense.
Yeah, the front is here.
Okay.
And it's 35, but the block is 30.
Okay.
The 17 is on this side. Mm-hmm. And it's because we have side setbacks that were done before the zoning code, or as the zoning code was coming into effect. And the side setbacks then were not handled the way they are now.
And so what you're asking for is a comp plan amendment, but the building coverage is greater than the city standard?
Again, because, yes.
Okay. I have issues with that. I also, it's really interesting, and thank you for putting that affordable housing. The combined assessed value of this 2-unit property is $712,000, which equates to $356, $350 per unit, and that exceeds what is considered naturally occurring affordable housing, and the information from the Met Council. It can only be $306,000. So it's kind of weird because we've seen different numbers for what constitutes affordable housing, and this is much, much lower than at least what I remember seeing. But,
Well,
yeah.
In the assessed value, I think addresses the age of the building.
Okay.
Whereas I think this is something that Peter could address directly if you had specific questions about why they are having such trouble with it.
No,
But-
actually, it was just a comment on
Okay.
like what constitutes that.
Sure.
And when I look at the zoning map, and I see your point because there is PRD4, but when you look at this, it's got its back toward the R2, and it does kind of, there's some deviation in terms of the grade. And so it doesn't really feel like these are large buildings looming over these double dwelling units. But it would be interesting to just see if there's a big height differential between how tall your building is going to be and the property right next to it. I do think this is one of those rare areas in Edina where homes continue to be more affordable, and it is in such a perfect spot because you can get the bus, you've got the grocery store, and you've got all of that. And while you do have PRD to the east, PRD 4 and PRD 3 to the east, and then the north and the south, if you go to the west, you've got more R1. And so, you know, it kind of just depends on what you're looking at, I think. I know we need to move toward higher density, but I feel like doing a comp plan amendment for this one parcel is problematic for me. And so I think I'm just going to stop there.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've got 2 questions for you and one for Mr. Teague. So the height of this building is would be the same as a standard 2-story single-family home, correct?
Built to today's standards as opposed to.
Right.
And the distinction I'm making is that we tend to have 9-foot main floors now where we had 8-foot then. We tend to have thicker floor systems because we have mechanical systems contained within the floors. And then generally the roof pitches are steeper today than they would have been back in the 70s, 60s. It was a lot of 412s and 612s. Now there's more 8s and 10s. So the buildings have tended to grow, but this would be 30 feet or less. So it meets the current zoning requirements that way.
Okay, so just as a personal request, the more you can make it feel like part of the neighborhood, the better. That's just my request.
I understand that, but of course we've built more than 100 houses in Edina, and we've seen the neighborhoods change.
Yes.
And they do.
And that's what I'm addressing.
Okay.
I don't like it.
Okay.
But that's just, I'm just throwing it out there. You'll build what you're going to build, but just as a data point. The other question I have for you is when you are tearing this down, you talk about wanting to address the climate action plan and everything. One of the things that we asked builders to do is to do green deconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just throw that out there.
I do have a comment on it. We moved the house off the single-family lot. We're moving the one off of that one. Both of those homes were deteriorated, but in good enough shape to do so.
Yeah.
This home has mold. This home has rot. There are other issues here that are going to preclude doing some of that. If not, I mean, there might be a floor. We'll have to see. And we'll typically leave that up to, in this case, the owner. he'll know the house. If there's oak floor that can be taken up, then maybe he'll decide that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. Well, and I remember you did that with the single-family homes, and I appreciated it when you
Yeah.
did that. So just throwing that out there.
Good, good.
So my question for you, Mr. Teague, isn't really about this, but about our process of upgrading our zoning code. Will the proposals that we've been looking at have a better way of zoning townhomes?
Yes, that is the goal, is to create this missing middle type zoning district. Yes.
Okay, terrific. So, yes.
I have one thing about that.
Yes, please.
We've been here for 8 years with townhome style projects. And we've been hearing, we'll get to it, and we'll get to it. So we need to be able to proceed with some of these projects while you're continuing to do your
Yep.
work. We understand you need to do your work, but we need that too.
Well, I thought you raised a very good point about how awkward our zoning code is, so I wanted to make sure that we made a note of that. I totally get you've got to do what you got to do, and you're moving forward. I don't have any objections to that, but I want to make sure we're learning from this experience. So thank you. I think this is a good idea. I would love to have them be eventually up for sale, as an ownership opportunity. I appreciate the density, and I appreciate you preserving the green space on the front of the house. So I think this is a good program. I just had to throw a couple of my own personal opinions in there.
Always appreciated.
Councilmember Agnew.
Thank you. And I'm going to build off of Councilmember Jackson's last question, because just so everyone knows, we are currently actively going through this process through the Planning Commission to do some rezoning or zoning adjustments. And it was just a couple of months ago now that we received our most recent update, and I was using this like storyboard experience where they kind of show what is the zoning today and what will the zoning be. And it looked like, Director Teague, for this site in particular, I don't know if we just hadn't gotten to it yet, but it looks like it's the same zoning in the future as it is currently. So can you speak to right now how you're thinking, how the team is thinking about this direct area and what potentially, based off of our approval, the new zoning recommendation will be for this site in particular?
Yeah, so we're still working through we know we want to create a zoning district for this type of use. We're still working through specifics of it, the setbacks, the lot coverage, those kinds of things. And as we were thinking about this area, it was part of the Planning Commission discussion, this entire block we want to study as part of the comprehensive plan. This plan could set the stage for, if we think this is a good idea, maybe this is something that we continue to allow along this block.
Okay, thank you. And then I was trying to look, since we did the Hankerson, and I think that was first voted to be approved in 2020-ish, have there been any other tear down projects within this direct vicinity? I know we've reviewed a few, but I don't recall if any of those have moved forward.
There's the subdivision that's just north of the Grandview townhomes. I don't believe any of those have been built on yet.
Yeah, we have one under construction.
One under construction.
Yeah, and the second one will be coming in for permit shortly.
Okay, and so can you point to that on this map?
It is off the screen over here.
Okay.
So as you go up from 52nd turns and goes north on Hankerson, you have the two townhome buildings, then you had two single families. Those were or are going to be removed, and right now we have three homes that are going in there, one of which is currently under construction.
Thank you. That is what I was remembering, and I couldn't see it on this map.
Right.
I mean, I would say generally, I don't have an issue with this. I like the incremental increase in density. I do want us to, and I know Director Teague, that the team is working on it, and it takes a process. So I appreciate the work that the team is doing, and I appreciate the dedicated focus on this area in particular during the comprehensive planning process, because change is already happening. I just want to make sure that we kind of get in front of it as best as we can to understand, is that in alignment with the direction that we want to see? But based off of kind of the recommendation of the Planning Commission and not seeing really any big concerns coming from that, I don't have any concerns on this either. Thank you.
And so it's just a question. I think you've probably covered this multiple times, but so the proposed is PRD 3.
Correct.
But because of the proximity, as opposed to the other twin homes on that duplexes or on that street are R2. Is that, am I saying
That's
that right?
correct, yes. These are all duplexes along Grandview Lane.
But those are R2.
Correct.
And this is PRD 3 just because of the proximity to the apartment complex.
This would, the rezoning would be from R2 to PRD 3. And
From
that's
R2 to
just
PRD3.
the closest zoning district that exists today in the code.
Okay, yeah, so based on the proximity, okay, thank you.
Sorry, Member Pierce, it's not from the proximity of the apartments, it's that it fits this building type.
Oh, fair, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I walk through there, it just, when I look at your rendering, like it feels like it fits with that street, in my opinion, when I walk through there. Like I don't see, nothing sticks out to me. I agree with Member Agnew, like we're in a position where we have this vision of what we think works in a space, increasing the density, that missing middle. And we have these challenges within our code that not just allow it, but encourage that type of development. But we can't we can't just sit and wait for that to happen. And so for me, this was directionally what we're looking to accomplish. And so if there's a way that we can enable it, I'm all for it. I also agree with Member Jackson, as we do this, and this happens all over the city, as we do this, making sure things kind of reasonably fit within the community. That's really important, that we have developers that we can trust that understand that and can really work to make that happen. That is a really important point. We see it all over the city where there's a 1950s ranch or basement or a split level, and then house next door goes down and what looks like a 3-story house goes there. It's not 3 stories, but it seems like it could be. And it just kind of starts to change the makeup and the look of the neighborhood. And we can't control that as a council. But in some of these instances where, like this, where we're trying to reshape a community, we have to trust developers that are going to go in there, understand our intent, can apply the comp plan, and make that happen. So I agree with Member Jackson's points as well. But I am definitely supportive of what you're trying to accomplish.
May I ask?
Go ahead, Mr. Fink.
I have to thank Paul and Chad for the decades that I worked on them when we started doing this. One of the things I suggested that we do was to be conscious of how the homes fit in the neighborhoods. And they've allowed me the design freedom to try and do that. So I hope that as you drive through the neighborhoods and see some of our houses, that is what you come away with. So thank you.
I'll mention this. I don't know. This has probably been 3 years or so since you and I had a conversation about this. And back then, I was just in general talking about, well, how do we come up with housing that fits the missing middle at the right price point, that doesn't look like, right, it fits with other homes in the neighborhood, so you can kind of mix these together. And the comment that you made was, we've been doing this forever, so I'm sure we can figure out a way to do it. We just need the support of the city to help enable it. And so that was 3 years ago, right? And so I think what you're hearing is that this is in a direction that we want to go. We do have to have both things aligned at some point. And so we're moving on the zone challenge, and we want to keep going on the other side as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you've gotten me more comfortable over time, thanks to the good work you guys have done in that neighborhood. This patchwork quilt of zoning that exists over there because of the variety of housing that went up over time, it's really interesting. So over on Hankerson, is this maybe the 5th project? Because did you do the 8 townhouses in 2 stages?
Correct.
And then you did the 2 houses to the north.
Right.
Or you took down 2 and moved them and then.
Moved them, and we have one up under construction and another one coming.
Yeah, and now this one.
This one.
So you're slowly reinventing that neighborhood and bringing it up to modern standards and creating housing that looks really good. People want to live in them. It seems like you sell them right away. And it's good. It's hard to have these conversations with you because we realize that it's a funky neighborhood, and you're doing the best you can under the circumstances, and you're doing a good job of explaining why we should be thinking about doing what we're doing. And so I didn't the design, the way it fits on the lot. I know it's a little bit tighter. I'm not seeing anything that gives me pause when I think about how much of an improvement this is over what's there and how it'll improve the overall neighborhood. So thanks, Mr. Benke. Thanks, Mr. Dunne, for being here.
Very good.
Hey, you're done.
Thank you.
We've got one other sketch plan review tonight, and of course we approved a plan for that Macy's home store site. We talked about this recently. And now they're back for sketch plan review for some proposed variations from the plan that was originally proposed. And Director Teague has this matter as well.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I will tee this up and the applicant will work through the details. So we're looking at, this is the old Macy's furniture store site on France Avenue. We're looking specifically at the northwest lot. The approved plan called for a 7-story, 124-unit apartment with just over 13,000 square feet of office and about 6,000 square feet of retail. This project is also 7 stories, but it's made up of 138 units. This would be an age-restricted 55-plus rental project with just over 7,000 square feet of retail on the main level. There'd be 2 levels of parking. So the footprint has gotten bigger compared to the original plan, and the lot to the south gets reduced. So this would require a zoning ordinance amendment to amend the PUD and a site plan review. This was reviewed by Planning Commission. They did have some concerns with it. In particular, the east-west pedestrian connection through the site. They didn't like how this shifts to the south and doesn't line up with the project across France. Concerned with some of the views to the promenade and just the general size of the building. So with that, Evan Doran is here from Doran Companies, and they will present the details.
Good evening, Mr. Dorn.
Good evening. I'm just gonna... Carrie, do you have the other presentation from this earlier today?
This should be it.
No, this is a different one.
Oh.
I think Archie Molly sent it to you this afternoon. I can get started if that's all right with everybody, since it's late tonight. Thank you all for the time. As you'll recall, and as Carrie mentioned, we were here a couple weeks ago to discuss at the HRA meeting the project. We did end up getting a little bit into some of the site planning stuff at that meeting, but we've tried to revisit that, and we'll keep that the focus of today's meeting here. I want to start with just talking about kind of taking a step back towards the broader vision here. When we started engaging with Enclave on this site, it was clear to us that there had been a lot of time and energy spent on developing this overall PUD vision around this connected promenade or pedestrian walkway, connected to the larger Centennial Lakes promenade, as well as sort of the greater Southdale design district. And so we wanted to enter that framework and bring a slightly differentiated housing project, which ultimately begat this, thank you, Carrie, that's great, perfect. Begat this active adult age-restricted project here on the northwest parcel. I'll remind everyone here, you probably don't need reminding, but the project substantially is similar in sort of density from the last originally approved PUD northwest parcel. We went from 124 units with a mixture of around 13,000 square feet of retail office and about 5,000 square feet of retail to now 132 units, so roughly 8 or 10 units higher, with 7,500 square feet of retail and no office. A couple things to just note again as we think about the bigger picture here is we are bringing residents here that are ages, typically average age of move-in is in the early 70s. So these are folks who are spending their daytime hours in this site and in this promenade and in this vicinity all throughout the day. This is not a sort of AM, PM, user. And so we think that provides a good opportunity to really continue to enliven the promenade space, in particular with that all-day user demographic. And so combining that with the retail users, we think this actually provides even further retail use. I'll get into some of the site planning elements of that as well in a moment, but provides some of that same kind of 24-hour kind of activity that I think the original plan was really targeting. So again, what we tried to apply is the same Greater Southdale District design guidelines, including the sort of grid, walkable blocks grid program, human scale, kind of the large 60-foot promenade, again, retains on the site, substantially similar to the programming that has already been approved and sort of implemented on the design. Again, focusing on the pedestrian, this east-west traveling across the site, which I'll get to a closer up review of that in a minute. I think we retain a lot of that element. In fact, actually there's more crossover between the east-west corridor within the confines of the site than there had been previously. And again, it provides a little bit of a differentiated project. The site does get bigger, and a lot of that is driven by two primary reasons. One of which is the kind of market demand in this age-restricted demographic skews towards bigger, larger units. And so there's more demand for 2 bedrooms, wider units. They take up more glass, more frontage of the building. And so we have that program sort of working, in our favor, but it does require the building to expand, as well as the parking requirements to service those users and the additional retail. I think ultimately conforms the building to a better overall program. The original building, for reference, had about 5,500 square feet of retail, as Carrie noted, but about 19 or so stalls on the ground floor, publicly accessible level, and we have 40 in this configuration. The amenity space in our building, which again I'll get to up close in a minute, but just talking about this page in particular, we've really tried to retain this sort of central node or kind of nexus of activity. Enclave, if you do recall back from their plans, predominantly kind of entrances and leasing and amenity space activity is predominantly concentrated in these portions of their building. We mimic that same concept here in ours, pushing kind of amenities into the interior of the site to create that activity node in the middle while retaining retail along the side, and you'll see that here in a minute. A couple notes on the Planning Commission, and I won't dive into all of their comments, and certainly we can talk through them if that's helpful. I think there was concerns about the building FAR. We were able to clarify kind of how that calculation was being done, and we were making a mistake in terms of including some of the parking in that calculation that should not have been. And so I think with Carrie working with you and making sure that we're all agreeing on the calculations, I think the FAR concern should be moot because we'll actually be generally under the FAR average for the site. And then there was some discussion about sort of building form and breaking up some of the significant massing. And I'll show you some images around what we're thinking about that. But this kind of H-shape building here is partially designed to break up the kind of monolithic north side of the site with a little bit more of a kind of narrow facade on our H caps, for lack of a better word. So again, I think we believe this really conforms with a lot of the original vision. There is the change to the east-west configuration and location of the promenade, but again, substantially speaking, same vision applies. This is a closer-up view of the old plan and the new plan. Again, for reference, the original northwest parcel building and the original southwest parcel building, there was this offset in the original promenade. And then again, we have adjusted the promenade on our site. The overlay between the two, the sort of visual distance, is actually slightly greater in our parcel, in our configuration, kind of east-west. I think as Carrie noted, there was some concern in the Planning Commission about continuity of view from across France Avenue at the setting apartment and the Craftsman office building. And I think the reality is, that may have been a factor when the underpass was in play, but I think the evolution of the underpass solution or scenario has changed that dynamic. And the reality is that sitting at the Craftsman on the ground level there, you're looking across 8 lanes of traffic on France to a site that is then elevated by roughly 5 or 6 feet by a retaining wall, which essentially still will remain the graded elevation. So I think there was some concern about, can you see into the promenade, that exists today on the far east side? And I think the reality is, you really can't see that today, and you wouldn't see that in either configuration because of the sort of distance and elevation change. And we can kind of, again, get into that down the road, but I wanted to address that concern because it was a notable one. A couple just quick things. Again, setbacks, where we're staying within the confines of the existing PUD approval. So all the sort of same setbacks apply. We're keeping all of those. All the same sidewalk, landscaping on the west, north, and east faces are basically the same. We literally took the existing PUD and essentially replicated it here. And then again, the promenade, again, remains the same, just moves location. Programming, I'll just spend a quick minute on. This is our current sort of concept. Again, internal circulation and parking for the retail users and guest parking for any sort of residential prospects. We do have a couple private kind of garages for what we envision to be walk-up kind of townhome units along the promenade. This is a reflection of Enclave's current planning to have kind of townhouses on their sites as well. So kind of keeping that like pedestrian priority and access. I think just as a note, candidly, this particular walk-up unit may adjust and/or be lost in a greater emphasis on having retail, particularly a restaurant potential user with outdoor activation in that corner. So that's kind of, again, TBD. But this retail stretches the whole face of this west side, which I think was an important element from originally to keep that space activated, and we believe in investing that I think can attract some good users there. And then, like I mentioned previously, we are keeping the amenity access points here on this interior node. Note that this is not the only amenity space in the building. There will be amenity space on the second floor as well that would be adjacent to our kind of pool deck area. It's just not configured quite yet, okay? Quickly, just sort of some underground parking. Again, that's not the most exciting thing to see in the world, but it's there. Quick overview of sort of current thinking about unit mix, which we can talk about further if you all like. And then I wanted to spend just a minute addressing sort of scale. So again, we have taken, this is not, by the way, per the exact drawings from Confluence and Stantec. This is an inspiration using those. We plan to generally mimic the promenade that exists today. We will not be building that as part of our project, nor will it be on our parcel. But we wanted to just reflect a little bit on the Planning Commission comments, make sure that we are responding to the street activation with the retail, as well as sort of the human scale orientation and the sort of breaking up of the massing here. So you can see the Enclave project, sort of slightly further east in this spot, and then again, the potential southwest building, which is a little bit TBD, but happy to answer what questions I can on that front as well. I think I've addressed predominantly all the Planning Commission elements. I'll just go back to the beginning and just reiterate again, I think we are trying to take the spirit of the original design and vision, take the guidance from the Southdale District, make sure that we're talking through connection points, promenade connection points, 9 Mile Creek connection points, those all still exist in this configuration. And so looking forward to your comments and feedback, and I'll stop there given the time of night.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Dorn. I appreciated that west elevation. I think it helped us a great deal. At least it helped me with, when you were here before, I was starting to worry about the massing on the west and the north. And but I'm going to reverse here, and I'm going to go to Councilmember Agnew first for her comments.
Should have
I
given
think I caught her by surprise.
You did. I wanted a warning on that. Well, thank you for coming back. If you could, I know we really got a brief overview of this at HRA last month. Could you speak to what changes you've made since the HRA meeting when we reviewed it last?
Yeah, certainly. I think a lot of the changes we've, I would say, been exploring as we went through Planning Commission last week too. We wanted to take their feedback. It's really just been about rethinking through how we're connecting to the pedestrian experience. So I think introducing how this is being visualized, communicated. I think it was you, Mayor Hovland, who had suggested that there was a strong desire to keep the retail along the west face as well as retain some level of pedestrian features or walkability on the south face. And so we've retained some of the walk-up units on that space. And I think the Planning Commission had some thoughts about access, including sort of trash access, trash staging, move-in trucks. That has not been implemented and sort of into this plan yet because we just met with them last week, of course. So we're kind of continuing to work through the operational space planning of that, Councilmember Agnew. But I think really thinking through kind of the elevation side of things is going to be the next big part of our process here.
Okay, so there haven't been any changes to the overall footprint of the project?
That's correct. Not changes to the footprint, no.
Okay. I remain just really concerned that we've increased the size of this, that we've brought the pedestrian experience further south. And I'm not excited about seeing that. So that's my initial reaction. I like walk-up units, that's nice. Having more of the retail, that's nice, but I just really don't like seeing the shifting and the massing and the overall evolution of where that pedestrian experience is. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll piggyback on Member Agnew. And maybe I missed something today or maybe the last time, but as you talk through it, I don't understand why. What's wrong with what we've already approved? I'll say we all liked it. I don't remember how how those conversations went, but obviously it was approved. And so even as you're talking through it today, it's like, why are you here? Build what we asked for. That's what we approved. And so if we're not doing that, and to Member Agnew's point, some of the things that we liked about the other one you're changing, I have to know why. Because you're asking me to do something different and to give on something that I liked before. And I don't understand what's in it for me. Like, why is this better than what we had before? So just very much from a pragmatic perspective, I don't get that.
Can I try to answer that question? I don't want to interrupt if you have more, but yeah, I think two things are happening at the same time here. One is the original Envision project included a southwest parcel that had essentially a tower element, right? It had a high-rise component with for sale units plus office plus structured parking. And the reality is, like, it's likely not feasible to build that today. The office component is hard to come by. The Craftsman across the street, you could say, disproves that, but it's also taking up and absorbing a strong chunk of office users at least in this immediate area. And the condo portion, I'm not a condo builder, so I'm not a condo expert, so I can't speak to the exact economics of that, but it's not happening in that space today. And so we had envisioned joining in on the northwest side because we think that there's some potential, or there's some positives to that site as well, including adjacency to Lund's Byerly's for our residents that we liked. And so when we were discussing kind of how these two pieces could come together, the reality is the southwest site sat on a smaller a footprint that was slightly bigger than what we're proposing, but it was a much differently conceived project than is probably realistic today. And so I think that just opens a question around what is it that we're mutually trying to achieve here? Because I think that it's unlikely that we're going to be able to build exactly what was approved in the original PUD, for better or for worse.
Okay, then I would, and maybe you feel like you're doing this, and it's late, so I apologize. So you're saying the project that we approved, you can't build that, and there's financial reasons, you can't get it funded.
I'm saying, I'm not a condo builder, so I wouldn't build it, but I don't think that there has been interest, to my knowledge, in condos on that site. And so in the configuration that existed with the sort of higher density sort of tower component. So again, the northwest parcel that previously existed was a 7-story apartment building, functionally, right? So I don't necessarily think that we are deviating significantly from that vision. It just so happens that in order to make the project sort of economically work, to get the 55 plus sort of age community who wants the bigger units types to play in this space, we needed some more space, candidly. Sure. And so it's the demand driver of the age restriction and the lack of demand driver for the southwest kind of high-rise condo element that is ultimately pushing towards this as this is the market solution. At least that's available today.
Okay. I'm not excited about it. Thank you.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first thing you should have seen when you looked at the Southdale plan and the comprehensive plan is that this is guided for community activity center. It is not guided for housing. The only thing that I really liked about this entire project was the condominiums, and I believe I said that at at HR8. I am not going to approve senior housing on this corner. We had a sketch plan for a boutique hotel across the street, and the argument we made was it should really be on the other side of France. I would love to see that boutique hotel with not activity space, but event space. I understand. I've heard this, for 20 years that we can't build condominiums. Enclave came to us and said, we can build condominiums. I feel completely misled by that. Like I said, the only thing I really liked about this was the tall, skinny tower with condominiums in it. I don't like the blocking of this. I love the shifting and massing. I don't like the massing of it. I don't like shifting the east-west promenade. It's a big building that's going to have a lot of seniors. I don't know what the world's going to look like in 20 years when the TIF is done with this, but I know that a lot of baby boomers are going to be dead by then, and we're going to have a shift in population. And so to invest public money in something that is only going to really be relevant for probably 20 years, and then we'll have a completely different population. I don't like that either. So I would love to see that boutique hotel come over on the west side of this development. And I do not like the idea of senior housing in a great big building like that here.
Councilmember Risser.
This is a $80.1 million TIF district, and when it was created, there were 3 separate TIF agreements for each of the developments. So you're coming forward with a market solution, and I need to know, does that mean we can get rid of the TIF for the northwest parcel since it's a market solution?
No, I mean, I think just like the Enclave buildings to the east are market solutions, but they have affordability components. Our building would likewise have affordability components and have parking to satisfy the needs of the broader community in the area. And so there is a TIF element for the project, just like all the other components have done to date.
Okay, we need to have a real clear conversation about what our affordable housing policy demands, because at our last HRA meeting, I came away with the impression that the buyout option has always existed, which surprised me because it didn't make any sense given the history. So what exactly does our affordable housing? Could they do the buyout instead of actually building the affordable units?
I don't want to speak for city council or city attorney, but my understanding is that yes, that option exists. We are not pursuing that option, to be clear, but that option does exist in the current policy, to my understanding.
Okay, so you would build the units, let them be affordable, but they would be paid for by TIF.
I mean, that would be one element the TIF would be supporting, yes.
Okay. I appreciated your comparison of the number of residential units with the original plan and the current one. There is a huge disparity between the amount of space for office and retail. With your plan, it's 7,400. With the original plan, it was nearly 20,000. So that's a big difference, and I have issues with that. I, like my colleagues, have issues with shifting the promenade, and I'm wondering, I don't think we can just say TBD for the southwest parcel. It could be something that is estimated to have a value that is a fraction of what the tower would have been. And again, this is a $80.1 million TIF district, so that's a problem. Part of me wants to say make the dog park go away from the promenade, and I would be more supportive, but you don't have control over that northeast parcel. I do want to, and I've said this before, I have a lot of issues with the design guidelines that really encourage developers to have to carve up their parcels into these squares and put in roads, and I know that's expensive, and I think it is problematic, and I really hope that that's removed from our comprehensive plan. That's a slightly different issue. But I feel as if we're if we supported this, we'd be painting ourselves into a corner, particularly with the southwest parcel. And I just feel like that would be a failure to act as a good steward, especially because, I don't have the numbers, but I don't know how much of the TIF financing was supposed to go to that. So there's that. I do think if we are going to make changes that are so huge, we need to totally start from the beginning and really relook at the TIF district, particularly given the issue with the tunnel, because that was supposed to be 20 million of TIF. And I do have to say, I have heard from probably, well, more than 4 residents who have just come up and said, oh, well, now that the 20 million isn't going for the tunnel, it's going to go to, you know, another development project on the parcel. And so there is a lot of concern about what that 20 million, which was supposed to go to the tunnel, will actually end up. And I don't know the validity of that, but I just want you to know that that's something that I am hearing, and the pressure on that. So I can't support this. It's not what we signed on for. And I didn't approve that anyway, but thank you.
I think it's really tough to be the person that first tries to follow a project that was approved and then failed. You know, it's, I don't even know what to use as an analogy, but I feel like it's just an awkward spot to be in. And so first of all, I want to thank you for trying to take it on here. And I was prepared to not like much about it either based on our HRA conversation, but I don't see that much that's different about this one versus the other one. I'm kind of with you on that. I mean, you got a little bit of a jog in that promenade. You got a bigger building, but it's the same basic occupancy level. What I was most concerned about was interface with France Avenue, which I think is so critically important. Then you've got retail all along the front there. And so it has some activation, and then you're thinking about a restaurant on the corner. I think that's a great idea. It does give me pause to wonder, I wish we could analyze both the parcels along France Avenue at the same time so that we knew how they were going to work together. You know, like, because they're going to come now with something else, and then I don't know if we've encouraged you or discouraged you, but it could impact positively or negatively your ideas based on what Enclave comes forward with for that southwest corner. I was always skeptical about that southwest corner, frankly. I mean, I love the idea, like Member Jackson did, of condominiums, but the company they had involved, I just thought they don't have much financial strength, and they disappeared like a leaf in the wind. It is fair to be disappointed with Enclave and all the sort of political capital that we stuck out there to support that project, and the concerns that we tried to address with neighbors nearby, and how we took it on, I think, on the chin for this project. And now this has nothing to do with you, but I'm getting calls from people saying, why did they cut all those trees down along the promenade? Whose property were they on? I mean, it didn't look like it was on Enclave's property, but instead of working around those trees back there, they just cut them all down. It was a nice looking stand of trees. So you may have an explanation for it, but it's going to be pretty poor explanation in the minds of everybody that lives over there. It's stopping over there now and calling us and saying, how could they do that? You know, why didn't you try to figure out a way to do that work on those apartment buildings without having to take those trees down that look like they're on city property? I'm sure they're not, but it was really quite a disappointment. And now you're not even taking care of the site back there. People are calling us and saying, the wind is blowing, the dirt's blowing around, it's blowing across the promenade, bikers are coming by, and it's dirt in the air. So you've really been a disappointment for us to work with here on this project so far. Those 2 apartment buildings along the promenade are kind of a no-brainer. You know, I mean, that's where people are going to want to live. And now here comes Mr. Dorn with some ideas about how to do something in that northwest corner. Thanks for trying to work with Enclave. And I've kind of concluded, I don't have a problem with it. I just wish I knew what was going on with the southwest corner. Because if it's something that doesn't have any activation to it, and it's just another apartment building along France Avenue, it's not going to be very appealing. At least Mr. Doran has tried to activate the retail side of it on the west side. And depending on how you use podium height or you use the in and out to make sure that it's not on a single plane, I think it could be okay. In fact, I think done right with your design team, it could be really pretty special. I thought you made a good point about what you see there. Yeah, I thought you made a good point about what you see looking from across the street. To me, that's not a big deal anymore. The tunnel idea is gone. This is a nice view down through there, and the fact that it has a little jog in it maybe actually make it a little bit more interesting. And to your point, the other one had a jog in it too. So, maybe you're like the guy who just started going out with the girl who got jilted by a 20-year boyfriend or a husband. I don't know, but it doesn't feel good for you.
There is a saying about being the first significant other is okay. You don't want to be the second one because most people like the third one. So hoping we can avoid being the smited third one. I appreciate everyone's comments. I think what we have continued to struggle with is that in our view, I think we can still deliver a building that brings a lot of the same spirit of the existing northwest parcel to the site. I understand the concerns about the jogging and the movement of the promenade. At the end of the day, the promenade is going to be an amazing amenity for the community at large, kind of wherever it is, candidly. And I think most people outside of this room and in this process will not see or feel a differentiated product at the end of the day based on where the promenade is. They're going to see this as a connection to France Avenue or a connection into the Centennial Lakes promenade and all of the amenities and attractions that trail has. I walk that trail most weekends with my own family from Target. And so I think the ability to create and sort of meet that vision still exists. We appreciate your feedback. I won't speak again for Enclave, but I think they are making headway in identifying potential user for the southwest parcel that they will likely be in front of you all on shortly. And I think we as you will eagerly sort of want to see how that process unfolds, because candidly, we have a vested interest if we are to move forward in making sure that the whole thing works together. We also don't want a vacant parcel or a undeveloped or underdeveloped element here. And
or a non-compatible element.
Or a non-compatible one. And I think we have been very clear in our position with that with Enclave. They have been very receptive to that feedback as well. And so I think they are invested in trying to make sure that this all does come together. I think it will be extremely challenging to get some of the features that were existing here originally with the tower component. You really just aren't not seeing that in this market today, unfortunately or not. But I think there's an opportunity for them to deliver something great on the southwest parcel, and I do think we can deliver something special here as well. So I hope that we can convince you of that, and we'll look forward to further dialogue.
I'm thinking that, I know this is all an investment for you, but I think what would help all of us would be to see better elevations here, and get an idea of what it could look like, so that we're not sitting here imagining what could have been, but we're excited about what could be. Councilmember Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, as I was thinking about this, and I think Member Pierce put it, what do we get out of it? So something that's architecturally significant would, change things a lot. But it really, I feel like we're just not getting anything from this.
Yeah. No, maybe you can talk him into putting a hotel next door, like Councilmember Jackson said.
Yeah, I'm also not a hotel developer, so I cannot speak to the viability of that either.
Whoever puts up a hotel in Edina is going to be busy all the time, just like the West.
Yeah. Well, maybe the Mortensen guys can do that at Galleria. But anyway, yes, we acknowledging fully that we want to provide some further elevation guidelines. We just candidly didn't develop those fully because we wanted to understand sort of site issues and whether there were planning commission issues that might have come up. So yeah, that is the next big effort on our team's part.
I think it was Councilmember Agnew that mentioned, you know, they had the walk-ups along the promenade. I think that's a great way to help create a sense of neighborhood and place. And so I thought that was real wise thinking on your part. Kind of like you have over at 66th and York.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's
on the back side, on the
is...
Xerxes side over there. It has a really nice residential feel to it. And that's what I see you trying to capture here. But I think Councilmember Jackson's making a great point. The architecture and the materials could be really persuasive, you know, and help us getting over feeling jolted.
Well, we are open for suggestions on materials, but we'll be working on developing that and bringing that back at a future time.
Stone, wood, metal, glass. That's what we like.
Yeah, I know. We're trying to make sure that we complement Enclave, but we don't want to look like the Enclave buildings because, again, this is a different product with a different clientele. So we are working through that process now.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you all.
It didn't help being the last act.
We literally couldn't find seats, so we had to hang out for a little while. So
all right.
Anyway, thank you all.
Okay. And get that Enclave group going there, Ben. Get them paying attention to stuff. Yeah, come on up.
Ben Landhauser with Enclave. I appreciate you giving the attention to Doran. That's part of kind of the arrangement that we've struck with them. Obviously, wanted to speak a little bit to the level of disappointment that was acknowledged, and just also appreciate the fact that we weren't sitting here trying to pull a fast one on the council. I appreciate the political capital that was mentioned as being part of the approved plans. Similar, just a very brief backstory. We had a partner on the southwest parcel when the project was originally contemplated. When we came to closing day, that partner didn't perform. So what we've been left with is trying to find that right fit, that right partnership of being kind of that component that Enclave was not initially intending to develop on their own. We feel like we found a very complementary, interested developer in the Doran Group, which is why we've had them step forward and start talking to you about kind of what their plans are. As was mentioned, we do have another party that is now actively working on the southwest piece. We anticipate to bring some information about that forward in the very near future, so that as the Doran Group continues to contemplate a more formal application, not sketch plat, you'll have all the information like you've been mentioning a desire to have as their proposal would move forward, so we can understand how the entire development works as one. Again, in the spirit of what originally was approved, with a few modifications that meet kind of the realities of we don't have that original partner that we had at the table with us during the initial approval. So I know that's at some level disappointment, but we are working to try to replicate, again, the same type of place that was envisioned initially.
Why don't you tell us why you took those trees down?
Yeah.
And why you're not controlling the site and the dust on the site?
I don't know. This is the first I've heard about the dust control, but we have had crews out there trying to control them as part of our construction contingency plan during demolition. So I'll follow up with our construction team on that. The trees were marked. They've been part of the plan since the inception that they were going to be removed, simply because of the amount of infrastructure that's going on that east side of the project where we tie into sewer. We have all of our stormwater management plan that accommodates the entire redevelopment that's been imagined, all funnels towards exactly where those trees were. So it wasn't that we had a better option of how to do that and still meet the objectives of basically repositioning the entire site to support the contemplated redevelopment.
Well, I can tell you that it's not going to cost you, it's going to cost us.
That's right.
They're not going to, they're just viewing you as a developer. They're viewing us as the body that failed to protect those trees. So we're paying another price.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you bringing it up here, and it won't go without notice that our team will be on top of it moving forward. And I apologize that you even had to take any of those comments to begin with.
Well, when it comes time to replace those trees on the lot line, make sure that you put in stock that's worthy of replacement.
Fair enough.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, manager comments. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mr. Doran.
Thank you, Your Honor. I've got a couple tonight. One is to note that we will have closure of City Hall and Public Works tomorrow from 8 a.m., so opening to 1 p.m. To accommodate our big once-a-year employee event. So we'll be getting all of our employees, as many as we can, together at the Performing Arts Center at the school. We have a program there, and after that, lunch at Dave & Buster's. And after that, people go back to work. So that's to note. Second is we have a couple of budget responses. One to some questions that Councilmember Risser raised about interest rates, fire debt service, et cetera. We'll share all of these with council members, and we have another one on Station 3 operating and capital costs that Councilmember Agnew raised, and we've got prepared responses for both of those. We'll share those with council. If there's other things that you've been thinking about, let us know what those are, and we'll get to work on those too. Finally, Dave Venny, who has been a participant at these council meetings every once in a while over the last 5-6 years, is going to retire.
Dave Venny.
Yeah, Dave, in just 2027 sometime, right?
January 15th, 2027.
January 15th, he's got a date. All right.
So, no, it's hard, but
it's
time.
Yeah, so thanks, Dave.
Not January 8th, 2027, no. Like the city manager. You're just going to wait an extra week?
He is. Yeah.
All right.
That's all I have. Thanks.
Marissa, you got anything?
I do. It's July 21st, which means there's one more week to file if you want to run for city council. And so I just want people out there to be aware of that. And it's exciting to see that people are stepping up to run, and I really do respect people who toss their hat in the ring. And if anybody is thinking about it and hasn't done it yet and wants to talk to me, I'd be happy to meet with them. But you've got 7 days left to go. And it's just a $5 filing fee. So think about that one. Anyway, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I believe, Sharon, you have to bring a check for the $5 fee, is that correct? No, it's cash. Okay, because I remember I brought the wrong thing the first time, so it's cash, $5 cash. Okay, thank you. And you go see Clerk Allison. She's your contact person. So I've got a bunch of stuff. I'm sorry to have a lot tonight, but I want to thank the taxpayers of Edina for sending me to the League of Minnesota Cities conference. It was fascinating. This year, the theme was very much on civility. And Luke Fisher, the executive director of the league, kicked it off saying, who are we going to be and how are we going to treat each other? And that was the theme that was running through the entire conference. Civility has dropped dramatically in cities across Minnesota and across the country. Our first speaker was Tim Shriver, who was chair of the Special Olympics. So he was in town for the Special Olympics and came down to Rochester to speak to us. He talked about how social media is a $2 trillion contempt industrial complex. I loved that phrase. And the new issue is how do we treat each other? He talks about the scale from dignity to contempt, and that contempt is the biggest barrier to free speech that's out there. And I think that's important. Mr. Mayor, I know you always treat everybody with such kindness and dignity, and whether you agree with them or not, and I very much appreciate that, and I think we all can learn from that. And the other takeaway was from the Hart research, found out that Americans are hungry to participate in positive change. I thought that was a good phrase as well. We heard from Metro Cities an update on the legislative. Big thing is about safety at the polling places, I thought was an issue that was raised. Let's see. Oh, I went to a presentation on drones. We've been getting a lot of conversation about the police using drones as a first responder. And Minnetonka, who was the first in the state to adopt this program, gave a presentation. And they also had another city that's, I believe, along the river. So they've got some, no, it's down in Chanhassen. Where the development is hard to get to. So they're able to send drones out to look and see what kind of erosion is happening, and they can do erosion control as much more efficient than sending somebody down there. They can go immediately after it rains. And their advice was to add an aviation section to your city. So it's not really about equipment, it's about the purpose of having the drones. I thought that was a good way of looking at it. So to have, let's see, and then the Minnetonka really did a lot of community engagement. They talked with the ACLU about privacy and data retention and what they can be used for. And I think if we are going to go forward with drones as a first response, they've done a very, very thorough job of that. And,
is that a pilot program or is it an actual?
They're the first in the state to do it. They've adopted it. It's up and running, and they did extensive work on that. But it's a program, not equipment. They all said that, and I thought that was a really important way of thinking about it. Let's see. And then our final speaker was talking. She was a futurist. And she said that the rate of change that we're all going through is unnatural to humans, and it's really overwhelming, and that we're never going to really know everything. We can't be repositories of the answer, because the answer that we knew this morning isn't going to be the answer when we go to bed tonight. And so that the way to deal with that is to continue to be curious. And those are my notes from that.
And the city manager has a tag along on your
I just wanted to respond to the comments about the drone discussion. We are planning for your August 5th work session, a discussion about flock cameras and drones, so kind of tech innovations in the police department. And so I just want you to know we're queuing that up.
Terrific.
Is that in a session at U.S. Conference of Mayors on drone usage? And Elyria, Ohio and Cincinnati too. They said their average response time now to an incident was 1.5 minutes. And I think one of the cities in Washington too, Redmond maybe, was using them effectively. And Elyria was also using them to do things that were infrastructure in nature, like inspecting their water towers to see if they needed painting, and instead of sending some guy up there at high risk. Anyway.
Exactly, and that's why they talked about having an aviation program. To look at it across the silos. And Member Pierce, you may want to speak to this as well, but would you like me to give an update on the city manager search? Sure. Okay, so we had our first round of video interviews. So we've looked at their cover letter, their resume. They had 5 questions of 2 minutes each. That videos got a real sense of our 16 candidates that we had narrowed down, and they also filled out a work personality index. And I have to say, Deputy City Manager R.A. Lenz has just been brilliant in teasing out what these things mean. And she and Perry Vetter and Acid have been our city management fellow have been very good at guiding us, but really the decision has been with James and I, and they've been resources for us on the job. The 5 areas we looked at were leadership and executive presence, governance and relationship building, strategic and organizational leadership, operation and financial management, and alignment with Edina's current priorities. And so those were the things that we looked at in narrowing 16 down to 6. I think we have 6 extremely strong candidates. We're going to do in-person interviews for the next round, so we get to see them in person. 2 of them are coming from out of state, so we will be reimbursing their travel. And that's what I have for tonight.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that update on all those things. Councilmember Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I'll add to that, this next round, there's I think 2 groups. One, it will be staff. The other group, Member Jackson and I will be with community members that were selected to be part of the process. And so I think it's good to mention that because we are trying to get broad perspective on these candidates, and so far I think it's been great. It has been probably more work than I don't know what I thought before, but it has been a lot of work. But I agree with Member Jackson. The way it's being managed, I think has been good thus far. And then the only other thing I will mention, I was lucky to get invited to meet with Senator Klobuchar. So it was a small group of, varied group of leaders, some elected officials, some entrepreneurs in the community. So it was a pretty broad group of folks, and talked about a myriad of topics: housing, how to invest in having more small businesses. We talked about AI, regulations, policies around AI, how do we strengthen our schools, and then bring in more investment into Minnesota. And so I thought it was a really interesting conversation, and Minnesota Senator Bobby Joe Champion kind of coordinated it. And so that was, I found that to be good from the perspective of listening and hearing from other leaders in the community, that some were elected officials, some weren't. And so you got to get this kind of broad perspective of how some issues impact different communities in different ways. And so that's it. Thank you.
Member Agnew.
Thank you. So I just want to appreciate Manager Neal, as well as the rest of you, for the engagement on the conversation we had earlier on childcare in partnership with the school board. I thought that was a really good conversation, and I look forward to the continued partnership and exploration of ways that we can work together on that. I know we left with a couple of immediate follow-ups, and then I assume we'll also be reconnecting at a certain point, depending on some of the outcome of those open questions that we have. But just want to appreciate you, Manager Neal, in pulling that together. I think it was really nice, and I think that is all I have tonight.
Yeah.
It's late.
Okay, good. Well, it's been so long since we've been together. It was before the 4th of July, and I think everybody had the same reaction, was that it was one of the best parades we've had in years. Couldn't believe the level of attendance and all the kids that were there. And the kids, you got to watch them like a hawk, because they'll run out underneath the car tire for a piece of candy. So you got to shoosh them all back all the time. And if you don't have candy, they look at you like you're a total deadbeat and they're forlorn. But the kids, yeah, it was really a great parade. We gave Dick Crockett a good send-off a week ago, last Thursday, down at Westminster, and then again on Saturday up at Lake Pelican, up near Detroit Lakes. And let's see, Finance and Commerce event this coming Thursday night. Fire Chief and I are going. And it looks like we might, is that for certain? Yeah, we won. We're getting an award for Fire Station number 2.
Oh, wonderful.
From Finance and Commerce. And I had to back out of going down to New Ulm, where the MLC was going to get an award from Carolyn's former employer, the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, which is quite remarkable too, because it's nice to have a good relationship now. Wasn't always true.
It wasn't always
We weren't
true.
getting awards from them before. And then when you talked about AI, it made me think, I was just visiting with somebody the other day, and they said their 90-year-old mother was talking to them on the phone, and she said she was starting to use that A1. And she said, well, what is that? What's A1? What's A1? You know, she said, in the computer, that A1. So, and Jennifer, welcome back. Yeah, okay. And I got one thing to talk to you about before you take off. It's, and I think you know what it is, 250, the Independence Day thing, 250th birthday thing, anyway, from one of our residents is concerned about something. Okay, that's it for me. Anybody else think of anything else you want to talk about? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
A dead tie on that.
Give it to Kate.
Member Agnew moves, Member Jackson seconds the idea that we adjourn. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Visser.
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson.
Aye.
Mayor Humblin.
Aye.
Councilmember Pierce.
Aye.
Councilmember Agnew.
Aye.
Stand adjourned.
So, given that I don't think we